Welcome back to the channel. This is Trinity Storm and you are watching first part of What If Naruto only has Kyuubi's Chakra, not his soul. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
Konoha was where the titans clashed, if there ever was one. A demon concealed in the leaves besieged the village's walls for 7 days and 7 nights. After emerging from the depths of Makai with his 8 clansmen, Kyuubi, the Terror King himself, launched an attack on Konoha. Each clansman then went to attack a different area of the world that was infested with shinobi. The vast majority of Konoha's population perished under his hellfire, and the remaining shinobi turned to violence against the demon's juggernaut. Despite their combined might, nothing was able to stop his terrifying raids. That all changed, though, when the Yondaime himself rode in on his trusted summons, King Toad Gamabunta. Despite being the only man his fellow shinobi had ever regarded as an equal to the legendary Professor Sandame, he was unable to vanquish this demon. The land shook from their battle, and the large forest that surrounded the once luxurious area was either charred from Gamabunta putting out the fire or in flames from Kyuubi's hell torrents. After a lot of bloodshed, perspiration, and tears, the Yondaime finally gave in to his worst fear on the 7th day and joined the fox's soul to a child's innocent soul. In the same way that Orochimaru disregarded Sarutobi's request to Hokage rather than the former pupil, Yondaime knew deep down that Konoha would not honor his wishes and blame the defenseless child for the battle's defeat. Yondaime changed the seal because, in reality, this child was receiving more punishment than Kyuubi. Since there was no real way to kill something that was already dead, Yondaime came up with a plan to return Kyuubi to its origin, but not before leaving him something valuable. As a kind of divine intervention from karma, the entire chakra of a village or even the entire world was going to be trapped inside this child. This child would endure torture for retaining his demonic essence from the aforementioned demon lord, and Kyuubi himself would endure torture in the afterlife from those he had tormented during his reign. But it was for a good reason. The Kyuubi couldn't return to the human world without his chakra, at least not anytime soon. As he completed this new seal, Yondaime came to the conclusion that it was preferable to the alternative. With those thoughts, Yondaime charged with the child in hand and sealed the greatest threat in the world into a child. At least the child would be able to defend himself if the villagers ever felt too out of line, and Kyuubi would ultimately receive what he so richly deserved. After 7 years that dream came back to him. Naruto relived the final thoughts of the man who had used his cursed blessing to seal him, just as before. It's bittersweet because he wouldn't be here now if it weren't for the man's kindness after a villager attacked him while posing as the old man out of hatred. Naruto discovered his door was unlocked when he returned to his dilapidated apartment after paying twice as much for spoiled goods after being attacked again and at the grocery store. He waited for the man to leap out while concealing his food. The door squeaked open, and Naruto saw only Sandame Sarutobi, his most trusted person on the planet, despite his thoughts that, "It will all be over soon, and if I don't move maybe he will leave my food alone thinking I'm dead." Following a brief exchange of small talk, Naruto noticed something was strange. The imposter then set up his trap, slitting Naruto's neck in a single motion and saying, "You deserve this," before he fell back. But neither death nor the cold ground materialized because something inside Naruto exploded as soon as he began to fall backward. The only owner of the Biju King Kyuubi chakra was standing in front of the world after the protectorate seal surrounding his pent up chakra slipped to save his life. After learning the location of the chakra spike, Anbu quickly arrived, albeit incredibly late. However, when they got to the scene of the attempted murder, Naruto was standing over a sniveling man. The child was completely calm and curious about what was going on, despite the mass murderous intent radiating from his body. Even though the majority of Konoha argued that he was likely attacked, the man was sent to the psychiatric ward within an hour to be evaluated for any mental illness before being charged with attempted murder. At Sarutobi's insistence, threats, he was found guilty but released on the grounds that he was mentally insane. He was now spending the rest of his days in a cushioned white room, replaying the shock of having the equivalent of a Holocaust victim's hatred for his torments going off in his mind after being multiplied 1,000 times over, after Kyuubi's, or rather Naruto's, chakra broke his psyche. They used to say that revenge is a dish best served cold, and this man was going to live his entire life hating this cold heaping of hatred in front of him. However, even after that issue was resolved, more and more serious issues arose as a result. What would Naruto do now that he had access to the most powerful source on Earth, and how would the villagers respond to him wielding the power of their most despised enemy? Most troubling of all, would he be a devoted protector to the village that rejected him, as Orochimaru did years ago, or would he turn his back on them? Sandame was in a tough spot and had to decide whether to leave Naruto alone and watch him battle from a distance before he killed himself in the village due to the massive backlash that Kyuubi's chakra would have caused when it was released, or to watch him turn his back on the village and swear annihilation on all of its residents. Sandame's third decision was to violate his own vow to never instruct another pupil. After gathering his nearly limitless resources, Sandame found the boy a safe place to live and started teaching him the fundamentals of chakra control. Shortly thereafter, for want of a better word, dreams began. It was similar to remembering scenes from a movie you haven't seen. The location Naruto saw, which was typically centered on a land with red skies and big, ancient Japanese castles, looked so familiar, but he had no recollection of ever having been there. When he told the Sarutobi about his dreams, the man told him right away not to tell anyone else because he was afraid of what the villagers would do to the child if they discovered he could still remember what Kyuubi had done. Naruto remained true to his oath and trained diligently until he was 7 years old, at which point he persuaded the Hokage to allow him to become a shinobi. The elder man was both happy and saddened because Naruto would be pledging allegiance to this village, but he was also reminded of his other apprentice. The question was whether Naruto would follow in Orochimaru's footsteps, who was once devoted but soon turned against the village after becoming corrupted by power. Sarutobi pushed his fears aside, remembering that Naruto made the decision and that denying him would only erode the boy's faith in him. As a result, the Sandame allowed Naruto to join. This is where Naruto ended up in a classroom with people he had just met the day before, following a brief daydream about the previous few years. The lonely boy's training with the Hokage made him mature quickly, and beneath his upbeat demeanor to make the villagers laugh and prove to them that they could break him was a boy who treats every circumstance as though it were his last. He now finds himself reviewing the mental notes he made about everyone in his immediate vicinity. The girl with the pink hair in front of him came first. Preteen Haruno Sakura has preteen fantasies about the village hottie. Naruto concluded that she should be avoided after just one day. The girl wasn't particularly ugly. In fact, she was adorable and would one day be beautiful, but her defenseless obsession with a particular boy would only make him slower, apart from her public romantic life. Sakura appeared to be a good kunoichi if she focused more on her training than boys, but she was only a preteen girl, so. The second person in the class that drew his attention was Yamanaka Ino. Like him, she was blonde and attractive, but she also fit the description of someone you should not pursue because she was also in love with a certain man. Ino, like all the seers in her family of psychic shinobi, had a calculating brain, unlike her friend, who had a kind gaze. According to his information from the Sandame, Ino might have been the strongest kunoichi of her generation at the time, and the expression in her eyes supported that theory. Naruto continued, his gaze settling on Hyuga Hinata, the final female student in his class. The cute girl was pathetically shy, but beneath her trembling voice and unsure eyes was a true beauty similar to the other kunoichi previously mentioned. It was ironic that, as the heir to the Hyuga household and a formidable Byakugan, she was more timid and unsure than her arrogant clansmen. That characteristic set her apart, and Naruto learned from his prior encounters with the Hyuga household that the arrogant clan was by far one of the most unbearable individuals he had ever encountered. But Hinata was different. Unlike the other girls, she didn't have her all-seeing eyes on preteen boys. Instead, they were on the ground. If she would come out of her shell a bit, she could be the strongest academy student because of her heritage, and perhaps even the strongest gene because of her parentage, but fate was unkind. Naruto's gaze shifted from the girl next to him to the male students in the class, beginning with the child who was sleeping next to him. At first glance, Shikamaru appeared to be a lazy bum, but as Naruto watched him more closely, he realized that his lack of motivation to pursue this career was the real reason he came off that way. The most ironic aspect of it was that a true shinobi genius was hiding beneath the lazy cover, just waiting to be discovered. Unfortunately, he was too lazy to do so. Naruto then looked at Akamichi Choji, the slightly bigger child next to him. The class, fat ass, was not at all the glutton he presented himself as. Being an Akamichi meant that he had to bear the weight of being bigger than everyone else, but it also meant that he had a real advantage: size. He had the capacity to be the class's strongest genin, physically, and if he could ever get over his self-conscious issues, he would be a truly lethal force. Naruto looked up and saw Inuzuka Kiba, the class's animal lover. His taijutsu demonstrated that the class clown and animal lover was a real beast on the inside. He used his clan's methods to crush a nameless child in a matter of seconds during the classroom spar, and he later gloated over it, bringing the boy to tears. Kiba's pride would be his undoing, but if he made it through that encounter, he would be a true shinobi at his core and, as a result of his loss of pride, a great asset to the village. Aburame Shino, who was as silent as a mouse but exuded a powerful, silent aura, came next. Like most skilled shinobi, he was quiet, cautious, and cunning. He might eventually be considered for a bingo book, but his loneliness was his only weakness, and Naruto could not say much else about him. He turned his attention to Uchiha Sasuke, the village tragedy story's protagonist and the last person on his list of notable faces. In addition to being the sole heir to the Sharingan in the village, he was also far more skilled than an academy student ought to be. For instance, during a ninjutsu test, he was able to use a Gukakyu, Grand Fireball, scorching the target and the majority of the nearby wood. He had been in the top spot for so long that he was entitled to his arrogance, but Naruto had to give it to him. Naruto was here to change that. Recently, Uchiha Sasuke created a rival, and his name was Amino Iruka called out, Uzumaki Naruto, as he rolled. As he called the name, the man's face turned hateful, but Naruto was unfazed because he had better things to do than worry about people who only hated him. Here, the boy replied casually as class began. Due to habit and the fact that the rear of the room offered the best vantage point for gathering information from both his sensei and his peers, Naruto chose to sit in the back of the room. The boy's sense of danger, which he had developed over the years to gauge a person's tolerance for him, was already booming before he had even settled in. Naruto felt his black shirt getting unbelievably hot under the teacher's eyes as he smoothed out the invisible wrinkles in his deep blue pants. Naruto shifted his blue vest over his black shirt, attempting to attribute his nervousness to the oppressive heat of his imagination. As the class proceeded as usual, Uzumaki fell prey to Iruka's intense animosity. The young man was apparently orphaned after losing his parents in the Kyuubi attack. The fact that Naruto, or more precisely, the Kyuubi vessel, was given preference by the Hokage himself instead of being abandoned like the other orphans made the young Chunin a little more than resentful. Iruka periodically attacked Naruto's intelligence with questions that were far above the level of an academy student for the majority of the dry history lesson. It was obvious to the class, who were usually asleep by now, that the new kid and their sensei were at odds with each other. After responding to a particularly challenging question, Naruto thanked Sandaime in silence for constantly reminding him that knowledge was the most powerful weapon in this era of espionage warfare. When Iruka failed to win a mental game of cat and mouse, the older man decided to stop trying to beat the child mentally and move on to the physical level because, in the past 6 months, no one had been this intelligent and skilled on the battlefield. Iruka proceeded to the training patch and began the exercises after dismissing the kids from the classroom. It was easy. The kids would practice the fundamentals, and Iruka, who served as their sensei, would point out any errors they made. But the one child he intended to make fun of turned out to be a budding prodigy. The Hokage taught Naruto everything a child could possibly need to know about shinobi life, including chakra control, but he never taught him anything that he could use in battle. The Sandaime only gave Naruto a sharp mind and an understanding of chakra. After that, it was up to Naruto. Perhaps this was because Sarutobi harbored deep-seated guilt over his estranged student, or perhaps the older man didn't want to tempt Naruto to follow the said student's decline from favor. It goes without saying that, in contrast to the Uchiha prodigy, Naruto was not the best kunai shooter. Iruka didn't waste any time in callously pointing out Naruto's errors. Naruto adjusted his grip on the kunai after some lighthearted taunting at the blonde's expense, and after a few attempts, his accuracy was gradually catching up to the class star. Accuracy training was superior to taijutsu. His posture was bad, and Naruto's skills weren't nearly as good as those of the more talented pupils, Kiba, Sasuke, Shino, and Choji. When the Akamichi male nearly smashed Naruto's head into the hard ground with his Buben Baika no Jutsu, partial multi-size fist, Naruto was painfully made aware of this. Throughout the battle, Naruto was either using his speed advantage to deliver careless blows to the bigger boy or using his agility to avoid punches that moved with the earth. In any case, Naruto was unable to win the battle and could only hope for a draw. Iruka couldn't help but feel a little bad as she watched the blonde. The student he had paired the boy with had a clear advantage. Naruto did not have parents or, in one instance, a high-class scroll to teach him the finer points of taijutsu. Unlike Choji, Sasuke, Kiba, Shino, or any other student for that matter. Instead, he stopped dodging and exhaled, already making plans. The chain is only as strong as its weakest link, as old man used to say, and I currently have 2. More practice will solve the accuracy problem, but taijutsu will require some instruction. But who will teach me? Old man is out, and I'm pretty much at a loss for what to do. Iruka chose to conclude today's lesson with a ninjutsu test before Naruto's mind could come up with a strategy. Naruto took the lead because Sasuke had been last the day before. The boy approached the stationary training logs that had been battered by Choji, slashed by Kiba, turned to sawdust by Shino courtesy of the Kakaichu insects, and, of course, burned to a crisp by the Uchiha savior, blinking in surprise as his mind concentrated on the task at hand. Naruto could hear the other students in the background as he approached a less damaged post. Naruto ignored the whispers of the other student and directed his chakra toward the one gift he had ever received. The only good deed that Naruto received was a chakra pentacle that his father had used as a good luck charm. In addition to being the one who gave the gift, Sandaime was also left with the duty and burden of informing the boy that he was the deceased Yondaimi's son. Instead of going on a bloody rampage and murdering numerous Konoha residents for their acts against him, as the Sarutobi head had predicted, Naruto thanked the boy for telling him the truth. The child seemed to have undergone more than just a physical transformation as a result of the incident. Naruto had also shown greater mental maturity than any other child his age. He felt it was more than sufficient to try to follow in his father's footsteps if this village meant enough to him for him to provide protection for his only son. Naruto now focused his chakra on the 5-pointed amulet as he stood in front of his classmates. I will only say this once, so pay attention. This is my Chakra Shaku. Chakra Weaver, Naruto said out loud while putting his arm forward. A long extension of chakra then blasted out from each of the pentacle's 5 points. Naruto ran to the wooden post and uttered, 1. Chakra Shaku. Dageki, Chakra Weaver. Strike. While running. Before Naruto made contact with the wood, the wisps of chakra that had formed around the pentacle's point closed around his clenched fist. The punch that had left the bottom of the log in a perfect flat edge tore the top from the ground. 2. Chakra Shaku. Tama, Chakra Weaver. Shot. Naruto said as he gathered his chakra toward the center of the Chakra Shaku as it flew backwards. The chakra burst solidly, flying straight through the log before a shockwave literally broke down the larger portion of the log before firing it back at Naruto. A 200-pound training post was just destroyed by the new kid's jutsu, which the kids around Naruto watched in amazement and shock. No one was more affected than Uchiha Sasuke himself. How does he just walk right by me like that? I'm a Uchiha, the strongest member of Konoha's elite. What does he resemble so much? However, before Sasuke could finish speaking, the sound of Naruto being hit by shrapnel from the demolished log interrupted him. Iruka was on the verge of intervening to defend Naruto, but it appeared that the younger boy was already covered. Naruto redistributed his energies throughout the pentacle, allowing the compressed chakra in the center of his Chakra Shaku to flow outward. Naruto linked the edges of his chakra beams and spread the chakra throughout the connected pentagon in a thick sheet. Naruto uttered the words, Chakra Shaku. Tate, Chakra Weaver. Shield. As the wood fragments struck the shield and were subsequently broken apart by the jutsu. Naruto looked at the Uchiha and smirked, dropping his aching hand. Naruto suppressed the urge to hold his chakra. Burned arm, thinking, it was worth it, knocking that arrogant smile off his face. Each of the 3 moves was modeled after one of Konoha's 3 Sannin. Chakra Shaku. Dageki was based on Sandaime's tales of Tsunade's incredible strength, and Naruto knew he had to create his own version after learning how much the powers benefited or hindered them. The Chakra Shaku. Naruto decided it would be prudent to learn a defensive jutsu after witnessing Jiraiya's remarkable ability to transform his hair into a living shield. Tate was also inspired by Jiraiya. The final Sannin, Orochimaru, served as an inspiration for Tama, the Chakra Shaku. He was by far the best ninjutsu user the village had ever seen, despite being Konoha's greatest villain with Uchiha Itachi coming in second. For example, he had killed countless shinobi from Konoha and other villages with his Seneashu, hidden shadow snake hands, before they had even reached within 3 meters of his body. Therefore, why would you consider excluding a superior ranged jutsu from your arsenal because it makes you think of your adversary? However, these methods had a cost, and since Naruto lacked the 3 of them's level of skill, he had to pay a hefty price. They channeled so much chakra through Naruto's arm when used back that he would not be able to use it again until the ruptured tenketsu healed, which usually took a day or so because of the regenerative abilities Kyuubi's chakra had given him. After passing the Uchiha with his delicate arm as motionless as possible, Naruto briefly looked at him to inform him that the bet was on, before returning to the class without waiting for his response. It goes without saying that this infuriated Sasuke and his groupies, and it simply elevated Naruto to a hero status among the class's male members. Now, Naruto is the cool jutsu kid, instead of the new kid. He was therefore inundated with inquiries such as, "Can you teach me? for the remainder of the class? He consistently responded, no, and like the others, they abandoned him, calling the boy a jerk. As a result, the classroom atmosphere returned to normal. The majority of the female class's book depicted Sasuke as evil incarnate because he was now glaring daggers at Naruto. As for the boys, only those who didn't care about being a ninja or who simply didn't think his skills were a threat to them tolerated him. After he refused to share his jutsu with the others, they simply didn't want to interact with him. Nobody attacked Naruto out of rage as class ended, and Iruka restrained Naruto as the group dispersed. Before departing, the person Naruto dubbed his tolerables raised an eyebrow at Naruto. Naruto turned to Iruka and braced himself for a verbal barrage about where he had learned the jutsu or that they had the demon spawn on him. To his astonishment, however, Iruka merely bowed before saying. Looking up, Iruka could see a little behind Naruto's typical happy mask and see the shock on the lonely boy. I'd like to apologize for my behavior earlier. Even though Hokage Sama had told the village there was no reason to fear you, sometimes it takes falling on your face to see what's right in front of you. The boy before him had been struck more severely by the world than by himself. While Naruto never met either of his parents and was referred to as Konoha's demon, Iruka had known his parents for a long time and was simply ignored by the villagers. Naruto was obviously shocked, but he covered it up with a smile. Iruka felt even worse because she could see glimpses of the boy who pretended to be someone else for the village. He therefore made the decision to have ramen, as he always did when he was feeling low. Iruka didn't anticipate Naruto's quick response when she invited him to accompany him. The boy shouted, "Of course, Iruka Sensei," and dropped his mask. However, it was quickly put back in place, and the only indication that it had fallen at all was the red flush on Naruto's cheeks. Naruto could feel the villagers watching him as he followed Iruka out of the classroom, but he persisted. Naruto wasted no time in robbing Iruka of his weekly salary after arriving at the ramen stand. Iruka grimaced at his mounting financial difficulties and attempted to engage in small talk to distract himself from the idea of bread and water for a week. When Iruka saw Naruto's expression change, he instantly regretted his question. "So Naruto, how did you get so good at ninjutsu? Come to think of it, you did use hand seals to activate your jutsu. How did you do that?" he asked. As his eyes drooped, Naruto thought sadly, so he didn't want to be my friend after all. Looking backward, Iruka was giving himself a mental handshake when Naruto suddenly looked up at him. Under the boy's gaze, all thoughts of consoling his estranged student disappeared from his mind. Iruka was eventually smothered by the boy's rage, which was all-consuming and like fire. Naruto didn't make the decision to leave until Iruka was fully and crushingly aware of his error. Thesis Sixth Sense was developed by Naruto, who had spent his childhood running for his life. It, or more accurately, his chakra, flooded the area while continuously monitoring the surroundings and warning Naruto if anything else, including other chakra presences or intents to kill, entered. When paired with his rage, the impact was 10 times greater, and because of one terrifying fact, that Kyuubi's, or rather Naruto's, chakra was boiling over and spilling over into the surrounding area, the villagers and self-righteous shinobi didn't bother Naruto for once. His chakra's typically sedative presence was nearly lashing out at the environment, as though it were attempting to vent some of the rage that was building inside its host. Naruto became more and more agitated at the people who were following him as he made his way through Konoha's dank alleys without injuring any of the villagers and reinforcing their suspicion that he was the demon seed. Naruto used his chakra shaku to strike out at the unidentified man, believing him to be Iruka. He didn't care that his arm was screaming bloody murder as his chakra pierced it. In order to scare Iruka away rather than destroy his body, Naruto loaded a strong chakra shaku Tama that was aimed slightly to the side. To his surprise, though, when he made eye contact with Iruka, it wasn't Iruka at all. It wasn't a man, for that matter. The shy Hyuga Hinata, who seemed to always have her eyes on the ground, was in front of him. Naruto lowered his arm and disassembled his chakra shaku to calm himself. Holding the demonic chakra at bay, Naruto gripped the aching arm and scolded himself in his mind. As he considered what would happen if Hinata saw Kyuubi's imprisoned chakra, Naruto told himself, "The last thing I need is the Hyuga in my ass for harming their heir." Hinata cautiously approached the injured boy in the hopes of comforting him and possibly persuading him to assist her. She told herself that she was weak, but she was sick of hearing it from her relatives. She was sick of seeing herself by herself and sick of seeing her father's dissatisfaction. Hinata carefully reached into her pouch and, being cautious not to move abruptly, took out the healing salve, not pausing when Naruto's piercing, feline eyes met hers or when he let out a feral growl to warn her to stop. The Hyuga clan specifically created the salve, which had the ability to heal ripped tenketsu remarkably quickly. This was necessary because, more often than not, a sophisticated juken technique would nearly destroy the chakra holes beyond human repair. As the cool substance worked, Hinata felt Naruto relax as she rubbed the cream onto the sore spot. Naruto quickly backed away and turned to go after saying, "Thank you," but he was stopped by Hinata's voice. The girl said, "Wait," attempting to avoid stuttering. She stood erect and gazed into Naruto's interested eyes before continuing. Naruto merely nodded and was ready to leave after saying, "I'm Hyuga Hinata, heir to the Hyuga clan," but he was stopped once more. "And I wanted to know if you would," he said, assuming that Naruto would lash out at Hinata's completion as he had in the past. The timid Hinata said, "If you'd be my friend," and then her words were heard, leaving a perplexed Naruto in front of them. After looking into the girl's eyes, the anger appeared to have disappeared. Naruto only needed to watch her eep and turn her eyes to be sure that her offer was sincere. The idea that the Hyuga heir would want him as a friend perplexed Naruto, but when he saw the expression in her eye, his soul immediately felt a connection to hers. She was aware of the agony of being shunned due to her birth. He was supposed to betray them in a cold, demonic rage, but she was supposed to be the best the village had to offer. It was then that Naruto realized the connection, and he thought, maybe having a friend is better after all. Both of them failed to realize that expectation and were persecuted for it. When the prolonged silence became unbearable for Hinata, who was about to flee with her eyes sparkling, Naruto said, "I guess having a friend won't be too bad," just as he was about to inform her of his choice. When Hinata looked up, she saw through Naruto's mask of sarcasm and behind the smile he put on for the benefit of the village. The beginning of a lifelong friendship began when she smiled at the boy's gentle smile. As he sparred with Hinata, Naruto reflected, "It's been 5 years." As the boy dodged through Hinata's precise and lethal juken, gentle fist, blows, he reflected, "Time sure has flown." Naruto couldn't help but wonder as he observed the girl's determined expression. Funny how 5 years ago, Hinata was too scared to even think about having that type of look on her face, Naruto thought to himself as he suppressed a laugh that sounded more like a strangled chuckle. This only made the girl's scold-like expression worse, which made her work even harder. 5 years had passed since the devoted night that Naruto made his first friend, and despite how corny it may sound, Naruto's life seemed to get better after that. Despite all the drama he endured both inside and outside the academy, he ignored Iruka's attempts to make friends with him as well as the naive villagers who were unable to understand his suffering. Soon after, Naruto discovered that he was spending the majority of his free time with Hinata simply exploring the town. Like a good friend, Naruto learned that Hinata was struggling at home because they believed she was too weak, so he decided that they could train together for the mutual benefit of both of them. When Naruto finally convinced Hinata to unleash her inner shinobi following a speech that gave the good-hearted girl a reality check, what had initially seemed like a good idea turned out to be a terrible one, at least in his opinion. "Hinata, this isn't a game. If you lack the will to do what must be done, you, your allies, and your village could be lost. Being kind is a good thing, but everything has its proper time and place, and the battlefield isn't one of them." Naruto's exact words on the day Hinata finally shed her inferiority complex and allowed her true self to shine were, "So you have to make a choice. Either give up on being a shinobi or harden your resolve and show me what you can do." The girl's journey had only been uphill from that point on. The closet prankster helped her steal some of the more sophisticated Juken scrolls without the main family noticing, and Naruto helped her master the Juken she had been taught. Hinata took a cue from her partner's strategy and chose to practice her own methods rather than relying entirely on what she had been taught. After reading everything she could find about chakra, Hinata was unable to come up with any ideas for a new jutsu until she witnessed Naruto using his chakra. She was drawn to the way his chakra seemed to continuously overflow from his body and serve as an early warning system, rather than the chakra shaku or its variants. As Hinata discovered a method to release her chakra in a field that resembled her hands, it was a cascading effect. Her initial test yielded startling results, and the field functioned as her own Juken amplifier. Hinata was able to use Juken from all of her fingers and close tenketsu with the smallest touch during a family spar. She also used the amplifier on every finger. It goes without saying that Hanabi was swiftly vanquished by the recently dubbed Jutesaki, gentle fingers, and the unrest that was developing in the Hyuga household stopped, for the time being, anyway. In contrast, Naruto benefited more from this friendship than he had anticipated. As the friend that she was, Hinata taught Naruto some of the fundamentals of a good taijutsu form, such as a stable base and hands in a ready position. However, when the girl offered to teach him Juken, Naruto refused, saying, "Juken is your family taijutsu and I doubt I'm ready to join your family Hinata." The simple implication made Hinata red and Naruto smirked before the girl retrieved him by closing a few strategically placed tenketsu points, freezing the boy right where he was. Based on Hinata's clues, Naruto used his natural abilities to create his own taijutsu style, which surprised him by looking a lot like the Hyuga's Juken. Lacking the Byakugan, however, Naruto utilized his overflowing chakra as a screen that responds to both chakra and killing intent within its designated area. By using this screen, Naruto was able to cover each of his blows with the overflowing chakra. It had a few unexpected effects when used. When his chakra-covered fist got too close to someone's chakra while they were trying to shape it, he had the power to distort them. Hinata was especially annoyed by this since it became more difficult for her to use her family's taijutsu when Naruto could simply cancel it out by putting his fist close to hers. Naruto thought the other effect was pretty cool. Naruto had limited control over his natural chakra element in the area, specifically the air that was within his chakra's territory, because his chakra was continuously flooding the area around him. After some practice, Naruto was able to execute airstrikes in the area by guiding the Junshu chakra, territory chakra, with a kick or punch rather than molding it. After its parent style, Hake Juken, it worked incredibly well with Naruto's new taijutsu form, which he named Hake Kenshoken, 8 divinations, striking fist. However, because of the consequences of his binding to Kyuubi's chakra, Naruto became true to his kitsune nature and learned how to shape his overflowing chakra, Junshu chakra, so that it could use a genjutsu to cover the area. Following that same development, Naruto started working with the genjutsu field until he was able to use regular bunshin to disguise the entire area. This prevented Mizuki from making fun of him in class because he was unable to compress his chakra into a bunshin. Returning to the ongoing duel with Hinata, Naruto was being thrashed by Hinata's Jutesaki. He used his Hake Kenshoken to deflect her tenketsu closing attacks before striking her with a double-handed open palm strike. He then used his Junshu chakra to push the girl back and momentarily stun her by flooding her system with chakra. After witnessing the girl lose control of her chakra in a matter of seconds, Naruto quickly withdrew after sending a pulse through his Junshu chakra that rendered the girl's Byakugan blind. Shifting the area out of her eyes, Hinata searched for Naruto before silently cursing him when she found him. Hinata thought to herself, "The only way I can defeat Naruto is by launching an all-out attack," and then she looked around for Naruto's Junshu chakra. Hinata sighed when she failed to notice it, knowing that Naruto was most likely laying some kind of trap beyond her Byakugan's range. Despite all of its advantages, Naruto's Junshu chakra initially worked against Hinata's Dujutsu because it was like a homing beacon for Hinata's eyes to focus on. Naruto started experimenting with ways to hide his constantly overflowing chakra in order to combat that. Ultimately, he started to allow the chakra to meld with the inherent chakra that all living things emit. What was once a barrier is now a powerful weapon that can be used against any Dujutsu. Now that Naruto could virtually disappear from the Byakugan, he could use his Junshu chakra to blind the girl and quickly flee to regroup if Hinata came dangerously close to beating him. Naruto, who was watching from the Byakugan's blind spot, was aware that even though Hinata was not aware of his chakra at all, she would still be able to spot him and ruin his plan if she saw his body. Naruto could practically taste the girl's nervousness as he closed in on his victim. Before setting his trap, Naruto gave the girl a mental applause. "Good, she can feel my presence, but can't find me." Before shaping the surrounding chakra into a region that affects genjutsu, he flared his Junshu chakra, blinding the girl. Knowing Naruto, he most likely double-layered the genjutsu so that everyone outside could only see the trees enclosing Hinata, who was surrounded by darkness. "Dirty trick, Naruto. I swear if I find you I'll show you how much Juken can hurt." Hinata braced herself and bought herself some time, waiting for Naruto to respond in the hopes that his voice would reveal his location. Naruto said, "Come on Hinata, you can do better than that," but to Hinata's chagrin, his voice came from all sides. In an attempt to evade his attack, Hinata used her chakra, similar to Naruto's Junshu chakra, to scrunch her face. She knew, however, that Naruto was moving too quickly for her to counter or avoid as he entered her small zone. Naruto abruptly stopped, and Hinata silently vowed to finish learning Kaden to prevent such a thing from ever happening again, expelling chakra from her body. Naruto barely had time to raise a pulse in his Junshu chakra to blind Hinata in order to make a clean escape before a strong pressure took hold of his head as his illusion faltered. Someone's mind seemed to be in a vice grip. Naruto quickly recognized the person, and as the realization hit him, he muttered in agony, "Ino," before hearing, the one and only, as the pressure began to double. Naruto was furious to see that the pink-haired girl had managed to break his genjutsu so quickly as he watched his genjutsu fall and turned to face the final member of his opponent's team. The two girls had initially vowed not to speak to Naruto, but they changed their minds after Hinata gave them only positive feedback and they saw how much the girl had matured. Both joined Naruto and Hinata's small sparring group with the intention of becoming stronger and possibly attracting Sasuke's attention, but that quickly changed when they became too exhausted to even consider the boy. Within the first week, they were both actively participating in new techniques to use their chakra to suit their needs and wearing weights like their two friends. Sakura's almost flawless control allowed her to swiftly retrieve some of the genjutsu she had received from Hinata, who had taken them from the Hyuga library while she obtained the sophisticated Juken scrolls. Her meager reserves were the only thing preventing her from using them, so Naruto decided to increase everyone's reserves, including his own. As a result, they engaged in a series of challenging tree climbing and water walking exercises that increased their stamina and chakra reserves. Since Sakura had more than enough chakra to employ the more complex genjutsu, the drills were now used as a warm-up for the day. On the other hand, Ino continued to practice her family's jutsu but applied it in more creative ways. Ino started experimenting with various applications of her mind-related jutsu after gaining more reserves and control over her chakra. As a result, she was able to establish a connection with anyone in her target range who was unable to obstruct her probing. Her ability to actively control someone was sacrificed in order to gain access to another person's mind through the jutsu Omoi Buraiji, mind bridge, which allowed her to leave her body. Instead, she turned to her father's psychology lessons, where she learned how to employ a tactful kind of persuasion. Her ability to attack the person's mind by generating pressure from kicking up too many thoughts at once was another consequence of the link. Naruto knew he was going to be screwed when his chakra pulse dropped, allowing the three girls to attack him with their combined powers. However, a shadow quickly swept over him in a protective manner before yanking him back under its ominous hold, severing Ino's mental connection. Naruto turned to Shikamaru and smirked as he asked, "What took you so long?" The boy responded with his catchphrase, then turned to his lifelong friend Choji and nodded. Naruto then shook off the last of Ino's chakra-induced headache. They appeared to have a plan, and he was likely to approve of it. Knowing that Sakura had picked up on it, Naruto used his Junshu chakra to create another genjutsu. He turned to Shikamaru, who was hiding with him, and nodded, signifying that step 1 was finished. Naruto turned to Choji and grinned as the bigger boy, who had chakra all over him, waited for the girls to be ready to give them the surprise of their lives. Before they began to notice Ino's improvement, the two boys had no interest in joining Naruto's small spar group. The girl's behavior had begun to change, or at least become more unusual than normal. She started to nag them more about training and less about their possessions, and she spoke about Sasuke less. Shikamaru's analytical mind therefore decided to look into it and brought Choji along because it could no longer stand to be in the dark. They were immediately enamored and remained so. Shikamaru actually went one step further with his training and asked his father to assist him, much to the surprise of the elder Nara. Before teaching his son some of the nuances of shadow bending, the startled older man couldn't help but nod his head in agreement. Shikamaru's rapid acquisition of the ability to transport through his shadows and do much more than simply make his opponents imitate him when he got his hands on them was surprising for someone who was so lazy. In contrast, Choji wasn't particularly happy about working so hard without being able to eat his chips, but he eventually got over it after a few days. Particularly after he began to lose weight and draw interest from people of the other sex. The big-boned child had adopted a new method of applying his family's methods and was now slightly larger than his skinny friend Shikamaru. Choji took a cue from Naruto's chakra shaku Dageki and used his chakra to encircle his arm in a bloated fist shape, enhancing his strength to an even greater level than Naruto's, rather than bloating his body to make his blows more powerful. As Naruto sensed his genjutsu beginning to break, he told Shikamaru that the girls had fallen for it. Rather than waiting for Sakura to break the genjutsu, they had Choji charge out in his shield of shaped chakra. Knowing how much damage the rolling ball of chakra could do, the girls immediately recognized the updated meat tank and leapt out of the way. Normally, a child, aside from Naruto, would not have the reserves necessary to generate enough chakra to sustain such an event, but ever since Choji began training, Naruto's reserves were superior. Although it turned out that the calories he consumed while eating chips did contain chakra, their removal gave his body more space to store chakra without requiring him to burn calories to access it. As the plan came together, Shikamaru looked up and gave himself a mental pat on the back. Shikamaru saw the girls' shadows, which were longer now that they had leapt into the air and were exposed to more sunlight. As they got closer, he linked his shadow with theirs to capture them without seriously hurting them. Then, as Shikamaru struggled to hold the girls, Naruto and Choji entered what he called the checkmate position. After finishing, the girls acknowledged defeat and acknowledged that they had lost. "Why does this happen every time?" Ino stomped the ground and shouted to no one in particular. "Our strategy was perfect. We attacked and subdued Shikamaru and Choji while Hinata held off Naruto until we could all take him. Why didn't it work?" Ino demanded. Choji, who had developed feelings for the girl, was attempting to calm the notorious Yamanaka down. Ino sighed and gave in to the boy's wishes, much to his delight, but he insisted on an explanation, which Shikamaru provided. "It was simple. I anticipated your move and we let ourselves be beaten, before coming to Naruto's aid and setting a trap for you. It fit perfect really. Knowing Sakura's natural ability to detect genjutsu, we set it so that she would come to the genjutsu we set as bait, and when was cracking it we attacked, catching you totally off guard," Shikamaru said, apparently failing to notice Choji sending him to calm down. Shikamaru went so far as to say, "You know being that predictable will be the death of you," ignoring the girl's increasing desire to kill him, before realizing what a mess he was in. Three irate and bloodthirsty kunoichi confronted him after Naruto and Choji had long since left. 10 minutes or so later, the intent to kill vanished, and Naruto and Choji slipped back. The area they had named Shikamaru's Hollow, after their POW comrade, had a foreboding atmosphere. The three girls were sitting there, watching the boy struggle against the ropes that bound him to the tree, when they came into the clearing. The blonde flinched as Naruto's Junshu chakra touched Shikamaru's as it filled the room. Hinata had applied some of the most agonizing tenketsu to the boy's body, and based on the distant expression on his face, both boys shuddered as they considered Sakura's genjutsu. As they moved to assist their friend, they were taken aback that the girls were okay with them assisting Shikamaru rather than attempting to stop them, so they prudently kept their mouths shut. Following the release of the kidnapped boy, Shikamaru started to recount the events, stating that Hinata had disabled him before Ino had sufficiently weakened his mental defenses to allow Sakura to implant a genjutsu in his mind. Evidently, Naruto and Choji's fear and respect for their female training partners only grew when they thought of the genjutsu, which turned the boy into a shivering pile of mush. All parties went home in pain after dismissing the meeting. Since they all lived on different sides of town, the Ino, Shika, and Choji trio took the opposite route from Naruto and Hinata. After bidding farewell to Hinata, Naruto ordered a big bowl of ramen from his favorite stand and reflected on the events of the previous 5 years and that day. As Naruto took a long slurp of his ramen, all he could think was, "We've grown. I know we will all pass the graduation exam tomorrow," Naruto said, grinning in his head but concealing it behind his public face. The morning after, everything had been the same. Naruto had experienced another vision from a location he was entirely familiar with but had never visited. He had been in a much larger bedroom than his own this time. The gold fox statues and paintings that adorned the room went well with the deep crimson bed set. A knife was put to his neck as he appeared to nod off. The assailant was a masked female with deeply tanned skin that was covered with short soft black cloth that looked strangely like the ninja gear the more elite females wore. There was a little unheard chit-chat between him and the female that no matter how much Naruto tried to hear, he couldn't. And as the masked went in for the kill, Naruto flipped her on her back, before unmasking her, and that's where the dream ended. Waking up in a sweat, Naruto looked at his clock and loudly cursed when he saw he was already 5 minutes late. At school, Iruka had a bad feeling in the pit of his stomach. Naruto had never been this late before, even when he came in with new cuts on his legs and arms that he couldn't hide behind his clothes, but still tried to hide them from his classmates. The exam was almost over and Naruto was nowhere to be seen. After calling his name for the third and last time, Iruka couldn't help but let out a depressed sigh when he was forced to fail Naruto. 10 minutes later the boy came in, huffing at his lack of breath. By the looks of his hair, he hadn't taken a proper shower in his rush to get here and his hair was still wet with bits of soap in it. Shaking himself off, Naruto was about to ask if he could take the exam, but the look on his instructor's face told it all. So here Naruto found himself swinging back and forth on the swing on the academy grounds. He knew he would have passed if he hadn't been late, but the dream had made him sleep through his alarm. Stopping his mental beratement when he felt his Junshu chakra going off, he looked at the intruder with slanted eyes. Mizuki, what does he want? Naruto thought to himself, and as if on some sort of cue, the man began explaining how he could graduate. Initially Naruto was suspicious and for good reason. What the Chunin was suggesting was clearly treason, but Naruto decided if he turned the man in he may get to graduate in a sneak peek at the scroll. A few hours later, Naruto was running through the forest surrounding Konoha, and stopped a miles off from where Mizuki originally intended. After cracking the verification code, Naruto assumed that his father's blood gave him access to the scroll, and with a shrug, the boy began digging into the scroll. The first technique, Kage Bushin, Shadow Clone, had his name written all over it, and unlike the normal Bunshin, it was direct splitting of his chakra, making it much easier for him to form it, rather than trying to force his chakra into a small place. The second jutsu, though, was much more appealing. Naiteki Kai, Inner Release, was the name. Not too impressive, Naruto thought to himself before he read the description. Releases the inner potential of a shinobi. Not to be confused with the 8 inner chakra gates, this release doesn't affect the chakra flow, it just releases the natural inhibits your body sets through a hypnotic trance. There were the only words written before the scroll went on to the next technique. I guess it's worth a shot, Naruto thought to himself while remembering what the Sandaime said. You are not the Kyuubi and you are not its container. You are the barrier that keeps him from coming back, and never forget it. Naruto mentally recited, before going through with the hand seals. Pain erupted through the boy's body as he let out a blood-curdling scream that rang throughout all of Konoha, but even then it didn't drown out the gravel voice's words in his head, "Who has summoned me?" And with that, Naruto blacked out. Iruka hoped to reach the boy before anyone could avenge the Kyuubi vessel, after the flock of birds dispersing from his right verified Naruto's location. Iruka sighed upon arriving and learning that he had defeated everyone to the boy, but his shinobi sense was going off as he got closer to Naruto. Iruka spun around, avoiding the hail of kunai coming from behind, and caught the Fuma shuriken that was about to cleave his head. Iruka tightened his hold on the four-bladed shuriken while glancing at his attacker's beaming face. Iruka thought, just Mizuki, but then something clicked. Mizuki was going to disobey the Hokage's order to bring Naruto back alive based on his behavior. Mizuki had to suppress a laugh at the irony as he saw his partner stand protectively over the demon child. You, the child orphaned by the Kyuubi, are going to protect the very thing that took away what meant most to you. That's rich. Mizuki wept as she laughed. Iruka simply ignored the man as he braced himself for combat. As Iruka watched his assistant teacher stop laughing, he thought, he won't kill Naruto, not until I can apologize to him. With his Fuma shuriken spinning like a buzzsaw, Mizuki spoke, I guess you aren't going to step aside, so I guess I'll just have to move you, before racing toward Iruka. Iruka took a deep breath of calm and prepared himself before charging forward, spinning his Fuma shuriken. Inside Naruto thought, it hurts all over, and to his surprise, his thoughts reverberated throughout the room that felt like a sewer. Naruto stood up from the damp ground and turned to face the largest vault he had ever seen. A number of red and blue pipes entered and exited the elaborate stone lock. Naruto let his gaze drop from top to bottom and noticed a tiny gap that appeared to be the vault's keyhole. Words in kanji were written around the round hole. The world could be damned right here. Let the world suffer the consequences of everyone who tries to destroy it, and scourge everyone who endures Makai's torments. But there is also the potential for a savior here, one who will rid the world of all evil and shield people from the looming genocide. That's when Naruto stopped reading the kanji spiraling around the dark hole. Come those who dare to unlock this power and control your destiny, he said. Naruto was overcome with fear, a feeling he hadn't experienced in years, which impairs judgment. The rumbling behind the opulent tomb walls only served to reinforce the suspicion that this power belonged to the Kyuubi. Could this be my Gigi? To damn them or to save everyone I care about? Before dipping his arm into the unknown depths of the keyhole, Naruto pondered. A crimson glow gave way to an abyssal black as the words spiraled around the hole. Around Naruto's imprisoned left arm, the magnificent tomb door started to open. Naruto's arm was unharmed after a lot of movement, but that was the least of his concerns as the massive stone wall slid into the room's corners like a sewer. Naruto chose to focus on the black chakra emanating from the once sealed room like a low-lying fog rather than massaging his aching arm. A ghostly, pale arm covered in kanji, the same kind of kanji that was on the door, came into view behind the veil of darkness. Years of dreams suddenly returned to Naruto's consciousness. The only thing Naruto could say as he stared at the creature that emerged from the shadows was, Shinigami. The Shinigami was the creature that was imprisoned inside Naruto. It was the only one with inhabitants on both sides and authority over the boundaries between life and death. It was telling Naruto now while staring him in the eye. According to the Shinigami, human, come and see if you are strong enough to take the power Yondaime left you during his last moments, before approaching Naruto. Naruto quickly activated his Junshu Chakra and attempted to use it to deliver a Kenshokan strike after dodging the Shinigami's ghostly hand swipe, but what appeared to be a direct hit was actually only a slight diversion for the Death God. Before using his Charka Shaku, Naruto thought, "Alright, let's try this." After wrapping the energies around his fist, Naruto ran toward the monster and slammed his fist into the Shinigami while yelling a loud war cry. The Death Lord just looked down on the boy whose arm was now stuck inside of him, rather than blowing back the monster as Naruto and the Chakra Shaku Dageki had hoped. In return, the Shinigami infected the boy's chakra system by forcing his arm through his chest. Now the true test begins, was all Naruto could hear before his senses went blank and he felt a searing pain. Above ground, after hearing Naruto whisper, "Shinigami," and then let out loud groans of pain, Iruka thought to himself, "This should be over soon, Naruto, I promise." Since it had taken the fourth from the village and sealed a monster inside a child, Iruka had never liked the words, "Death God." The fact that the boy was whispering that in his sleep before groaning in agony was more than a bad omen for him. Iruka knew that he would eventually defeat Mizuki, so he clashed Fuma Shuriken with Fuma Shuriken. As Iruka started spinning his stolen shuriken once more, he leapt back from their lethal game of touch and go and hurried forward to meet Mizuki, who was also spinning. Iruka countered with a downward slash that nicked Mizuki's attacking arm, slowing down just enough to avoid Mizuki's attempt to cut his head off. Iruka then delivered a bone-shattering blow to Mizuki's stomach after performing a back leg sidekick. Iruka breathed in, never taking his eyes off Mizuki, and then exhaled as he charged forward more quickly than before. Mizuki was not a moron. He was aware that Iruka would quickly surpass him once he lost his sense of surprise. This was the reason he was the assistant sensei and Iruka was in charge of him, but he made up for Mizuki's lack of skill with guile. Mizuki sent his Fuma Shuriken hurtling in Naruto's direction because he knew the boy was helpless and that Iruka would do everything in his power to protect him. Iruka's focus was diverted to protect Naruto, and Mizuki was able to momentarily avoid his impending death, so everything went as planned for the criminal. Iruka threw his own Fuma Shuriken and sighed in relief when it made contact with Mizuki's and veered away from Naruto. Iruka looked at his assistant teacher and assumed that this would now be an unarmed conflict. Alongside Naruto in an attempt to combat the undead creature that was causing its host excruciating pain, Naruto's Junshu Chakra flailed wildly, but as before, the chakra just phased through the creature without harming it. Naruto found himself caught between consciousness and sweet slumber after feeling Kyuubi's trapped chakra and unsuccessfully attempting to calm the mind. Numbing pain. Whatever it was, it had a sadist heart and kept Naruto in a never-ending barrage of pain that wasn't severe enough to incapacitate him but was enough to keep every pain receptor screaming. Naruto forced himself to push through his discomfort and slightly flex his midsection to meet the Shinigami's gaze. The dead, pale skin started to spread throughout Naruto like an infection when the icy black eyes met the gleaming blue. Naruto nearly dozed off while enjoying the pleasant cooling effect that the dead chakra was providing, but he was awakened by the sensation of something warm touching his face. The boy rubbed his cheek and found nothing, but the warm sensation persisted in accumulating around his cheek and down his face, successfully diverting his attention from his discomfort long enough for him to think. "I can't pass away here." After he said, "I would let so many people down. So many people that need me to be there." Pictures of his friends Sakura, Ino, Shikamaru, Choji, and Hinata appeared in his mind, followed by innumerable others who had helped shape who he is now. In order to combat the icy hand of death that was now hovering just beneath his neck, Naruto clenched his jaw. After compressing the invading chakra in his chest and pushing it inward, Naruto heard the Shinigami say, "You are worthy," after a few excruciating moments of holding the force there. Before he blacked out, Naruto experienced a wave of relief and the burning pain stopped. Above ground, in order to shield Naruto from the Fuma Shuriken, which would have undoubtedly killed him, Iruka found himself above the boy. Iruka saved Naruto's life, but when he realized that they were both doomed now, he couldn't help but curse at himself. Given that Iruka was helpless and the aforementioned Chunin had regained his favorite weapon, he was in no condition to fight Mizuki any longer. In retrospect, Iruka realized that this moment was inevitable when Mizuki was able to get past him and recover both of the Fuma Shuriken. Iruka was stunned by the cheap shot he had taken, and being the cunning jerk that he was, he threw it at Naruto once more, but this time he had no weapon to deflect it with, so there was only one choice left. Iruka hoped Naruto would pardon him in the afterlife as he watched Mizuki close in on their both defenseless and prone bodies, but fate decided he wouldn't have to wait. Naruto's eyes widened abruptly, and he quickly used his enhanced Junshu Chakra field to stop Mizuki's shuriken. Mizuki initially thought that Iruka had set him up after seeing the shuriken that appeared to stop in midair, but his academy teacher's expression showed that he was just as shocked as he was. Only when Naruto uttered the words, "Don't ever attack Iruka. Sensei again," did Mizuki awaken from his trance. Mizuki only needed to glance into the boy's eyes to realize that this was not the Naruto who was tardy for the graduation exam or who only put forth a mediocre effort in class. Based on the expression in his eyes, this boy was the target of the fiercest Biju Chakra. Mizuki was tense, and Naruto clutched his chest, expecting a blast from his Chakra Shaku, but instead he received something completely different. Rather than releasing chakra from his pentacle, Naruto unleashed a startling effect using his most recent technique, Naiteki Kai. The boy changed from his typical black and blue attire to a traditional all-black kimono and hakama, but Naruto stayed mostly unchanged until a hole appeared on his chest. Right behind his family's pentacle was the hole surrounded by 5 silver nodes. As soon as Naruto glanced down at it, a black chain sprang out, wrapped around his arm, and dug into the ground, engulfing him in black flames. Mizuki, who was more than a little unnerved by the demon boy's metamorphosis, regained some of his lost self-assurance when Naruto collapsed to one knee while gripping his arm as the chains continued to pierce the earth. Before taunting Naruto, Mizuki prepared a second Fuma shuriken and started spinning the blade as before. Mizuki hurried after Naruto, his blade buzzing behind him, poised to cut the boy's head off. "It seems the demon can't even control his own jutsu, and you thought that you could protect the idiot behind you when you can't even protect yourself," Mizuki said. Naruto, however, was not going to take this lying down. Rather, he rose to his feet, his eyes blazing with rage, and then he called forth his sword from the earth's depths. A Zanpakuto was not just any sword, though. Something within Naruto declared that it was his blade and that it was more unique than anything else on the planet. After taking out his soul cutter and severing the blades of Mizuki's Fuma shuriken, Naruto whipped his left arm's chains at the traitor in an attempt to apprehend him. Naruto halted before he leveled the entire area of the forest after observing Mizuki dodge and his chains sever a few trees. Before creating the seal for his other new jutsu, he buried his Zanpakuto in the ground. Naruto exclaimed, "Taju Kage Bushin," as dozens of clones, all wearing black and matching Zanpakuto, swarmed into view and gave Mizuki a menacing smile. The soon .bex. Academy Sensei had a long night. Dawn. When the Anbu returned with Naruto, Iruka, and the now dead Mizuki, Sarutobi couldn't help but chuckle at Mizuki's situation. Even though he had witnessed it all in his crystal ball, the real-life version was far more hilarious. After making a stern face and absolving the Anbu of their responsibility, Sarutobi pretended to lecture Naruto before asking the boy what had transpired. Sarutobi, who was unimpressed by the boy's resourcefulness and foresight, only noticed one weakness in Naruto's scheme, and that was, "So Naruto-kun, you may have successfully captured the criminal and saved the village scroll, but why did you have to read the scroll? I'm sure that wasn't needed for you to complete the mission," Sarutobi said with a wry grin. Naruto needed to remind the boy that he wasn't entirely off the hook, even though he had done the village a favor. He may have irreparably damaged the seal after nearly dying while tampering with the scroll. In an attempt to get out of trouble, Naruto quickly put on his smiling idiot mask and then explained his reasons to Sarutobi, looking like a deer in front of a Kaiden jutsu. Naruto looked the old man in the eye and grinned foolishly. "You see, old man, Mizuki would have probably made a run for it as soon as he found out it was a trap, so I needed to make him believe that I really stole the scroll or he would have just left the village," Naruto said. "I read the scroll because I needed more jutsu," as Sarutobi could read on the blonde's face without even hearing her explanation. Sarutobi grinned and shook his head, letting the blonde go, deciding to investigate what the jutsu had done to Naruto later. After confirming for the third time that Naruto and Iruka had left the building and that he was free to read his small orange book, Sarutobi thought, "Now for my favorite pastime." With Iruka and Naruto, it was late, and it appeared that Naruto and Iruka would be attending academy classes for another year. As Iruka led him to the ramen stand, Naruto thought, "Oh well, it won't be too bad this time around, especially without Mizuki Teme around and me being pissed at Iruka. Sensei." Naruto looked at the Chunin, nodded, and got to work. After roughly 5 bowls and a hole in Iruka's wallet, the Chunin turned to Naruto with trepidation and said, "Close your eyes." Naruto found that statement to be doubly loaded because, although he had grown up trusting only himself, a select few people, and the Sandaime, He reasoned that it wouldn't hurt to let down his barriers once more after what Iruka had done for him tonight. Naruto closed his eyes and heard some shuffling. When Iruka said, "Open your eyes," he was shocked to see his heat in his hands. "I guess I'll see you tomorrow for team assignments," Iruka said with a genuine smile, glancing at the boy who had taken off his idiot mask. Naruto nodded and fastened the heiat firmly before he and Iruka parted ways. The morning after. The longest Naruto had ever had to wait for anything was the 6 hours between his late graduation and class. During his brief period of sleep, he began to see more and more images of the place his body and spirit were familiar with, but his mind was unable to recall. This time it had picked up somewhere else. He was still in his opulent red room, but something was different. When Naruto looked to his side, he saw the ninja who had attempted to kill him the last time he checked, but based on their current circumstances, he decided they were more than friendly. The woman, whose skin resembled gleaming bronze, gazed into his eyes with her own golden, cat-like eyes. Naruto's world briefly turned black after a few whispers, and he was once again in the same room, but the assassin had changed significantly. Her tight-fitting black linen outfit was abandoned and left at the bedside, and her neatly styled jet-black hair was now in a messy mess. Naruto couldn't help but think that he, or whoever he was now, was going to be her new chew toy as he looked at the now naked woman who was crawling towards him with her cat-like eyes fixed only on his. Naruto's mind darkened once more as the red silk bed lining was ready to drop from her breasts, but this time, instead of returning to his dream, he entered the real world. "Might as well take a shower now that I have some time," Naruto said out loud as he looked at his alarm clock. He then headed to the shower in the hopes that a cold shower would help him forget about his hentai thoughts and hot sweat. The refreshing, chilly shower worked its magic, and Naruto stopped thinking about hentai. No, the boy thought. I simply needed to take a frigid shower. I feel like an F.ing icicle now. Naruto rubbed his legs to restore some feeling before moving to his arms. After 5 complete minutes, he looked down at his left arm, which was still not warming up, and noticed something that made him extremely frightened. 2 tattoos of chains were coiling up his arm, interlocking in a complex pattern until they stopped at his shoulder, where they split and each traveled to the center of his chest, where the chains had begun. One chain was in the front, and the other was in the back. Naruto was terrified into a panic by the feeling, which was similar to what he experienced when the Shinigami was attempting to kill him. How can I conceal this? If this thing tries to kill me again, how will I conceal this and will I be able to survive? Naruto thought frantically. It hasn't killed me yet, so it must be dormant, the boy said, nodding in agreement with his own theory. So if I just wrap it, it shouldn't activate unless, he reasoned after 10 minutes of calmness. That's when it finally hit Naruto. Only when he employed Naiteki Kai did the chains come to life. Before departing for the academy, Naruto wrapped his left arm in bandages, thinking, that must be the key to activating it, and if I stay away from using that jutsu, I should be fine. He double-checked that the bandages wouldn't come loose. When he first arrived, Naruto simply pointed at his heiat to silence the more persistent people, ignoring those who asked, why was he here? Gazing up at the smug Uchiha, who didn't appear overly happy that Naruto was gone, Naruto discovered that it was much more enjoyable to irritate the Uchiha now that the haughty smirk was gone. Naruto, Hinata, Shikamaru, and Choji sat down and watched Sakura and Ino battle for a place by Sasuke, with Sakura emerging victorious. Naruto rolled his eyes when Ino stalked back to sit next to Choji. He then told them a heavily edited version of how he passed and how he would now be able to join a team with them to kick some enemy nin and Uchiha's butt. Team 7. Haruno Sakura, Uchiha Sasuke, and Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto was not sure if he should feel relieved or annoyed. The man must have spent the entire night securing Naruto a place in the graduating class, despite Iruka's declaration that he passed. However, he was unable to pair him with either Shikamaru or Hinata. He simply had to get the Uchiha, even though he would have been content with Ino. As if reading his thoughts, Iruka responded, Naruto, don't complain. You have the worst scores in the class because technically you failed, but because of uncontrollable events, you have been given permission by the Hokage to pass. Naruto mused, it's not fair. Naruto caught the retorts on the edge of his tongue and bit his bottom lip. Not only would the boy be able to see more of his techniques if he were paired with his rival, but he would also have the Sharingan, copy wheel eye, to worry about when it woke up. Naruto reflected on the injustice he had experienced and thought, it seems that the biggest jerk in the world gets the Sharingan, and with it access to all my jutsu. The Sharingan was both the Uchiha's pride and the worst nightmare of their adversary. The red-eyed bastard saw your plans, your secrets, and all of your jutsu in one glance. Naruto sat down again with his friends and turned to face Iruka while they awaited the call of the other teams. Since Hinata chose Kiba and Shino, whom Naruto regarded as good shinobi but who were a little unsocial, or, in Kiba's case, too social, it appeared that fate only detested Naruto. Shikamaru was paired with Choji and Ino, two of his lifelong friends. Naruto's sour attitude only got worse when he saw how content everyone else in his group was with their partner. Hinata, his sister and best friend, was unable to make him smile his idiot mask smile. Before using her trump card, Hinata reflected, I suppose the idea of being paired with Sasuke was too much, even for Naruto's idiot mask to hide. Hopefully, Hinata's words would cheer Naruto up. It's not too bad, we can still train together after team meetings, and besides you have Sakura as your partner, she whispered to him. Hinata was unaware that Naruto had found Sakura attractive, which was a major reason why she was turned off to the idea of Naruto as a brother and a lover. However, as Naruto withdrew deeper within himself, what appeared to be an attempt to lift the boy's spirits actually had the opposite effect. Considering all the potential consequences of assembling this team, Naruto reflected, Sakura is cute, but her infatuation with the Uchiha is more than enough reason not to chase her. On the one hand, he would successfully convince Sakura to never speak to him again and beat Sasuke into a coma once he began his emo trips. But you would lose a friend in the process, Naruto's conscience said, grinning at the idea of Sasuke being so severely beaten that he was unable to speak. Naruto sighed, content with fantasies of upstaging the Uchiha survivor because he knew that his friends were more valuable to him than gold and that losing Sakura would be devastating. After having several fantasies, Naruto erased the idea of striking Sasuke where it hurt and woke up when he realized that all of his friends were no longer there. Even Hinata, who had been seated directly beside him, had left, and like any good ninja, Naruto was ashamed that he had been so engrossed that he had failed to notice her departure or the passage of 2 hours. Naruto looked away from the clock and saw that Sakura was still kissing Sasuke, and the sullen Uchiha appeared to have lost patience. Naruto laughed at the boy's situation and decided to play a practical joke on their late teacher to celebrate his discovery. He reasoned that it was better that Sakura preferred the Uchiha over him. Sakura couldn't help but agree with Naruto when he felt him gently flare his Junshu chakra before concealing something in its genjutsu field, witnessing the manifestation of Naruto's inner child. Furthermore, as though by divine decree, their extraordinarily tardy teacher entered the room holding a small orange book. Everything fell into place after that. A bucket of water, held by Naruto's chakra, was concealed beneath his genjutsu. When the door on the seal containing the bucket broke, it fell on Kakashi's head, soaking him to the bone and damaging his book. Kakashi suppressed his desire to kill while examining his now damaged copy of Icha Icha Paradise before he spoke. After saying, "Your first impression sucks," he gestured toward the roof and headed for the stairs. Naruto was already feeling better and the idea of Sasuke joining his team was a little more tolerable, so he smirked and followed Kakashi. In an attempt to start a conversation, Kakashi said, "So why don't you tell me your likes, dislikes, and hobbies?" His favorite book was now destroyed, and his one visible eye was completely fixed on them. "Shouldn't you go first, sensei?" Sakura asked, and Kakashi decided to go after glancing at each of them and realizing none of them would volunteer. After a lengthy silence, Kakashi said, "My name is Hitaki Kakashi and my likes are none of your business. My dislikes are things that piss me off, and my hobbies are well." He then burst out laughing like a pervert. Like the majority of men Naruto knew outside of the academy, he was a pervert, and it didn't take him long to figure that out. Naruto watched as Kakashi gestured to Sakura and said, "Ladies first," curious to know what the girl would think now that she had a taste of what life as a shinobi was truly like. Sakura pointed to Sasuke, who chose to ignore the girl. "My name is Haruno Sakura, and my likes are training and my dislikes are Ino.pig, and my hobbies are working hard enough for a certain someone to notice me," Sakura said. At least she isn't totally obsessed with Sasuke, both Naruto and Kakashi thought, stifling a sigh before pointing to the respective boy. "My name's is Uchiha Sasuke and my likes are irrelevant, my dislikes are fangirls, and my dream is more of an ambition and that ambition is to see a certain man dead," Sasuke said with an attitude appropriate for his upcoming emo trip. This effectively put an end to all the positive thoughts in his immediate vicinity and caused Kakashi to think, "Great. I should have stayed Enbu," a teenager with an Avenger complex says, before pointing to Naruto in the hopes that he would at least appear somewhat normal. Naruto dropped his idiot mask and looked Kakashi in the eye. "My name is Uzumaki Naruto, and my likes are my family, dislikes are pricks in general, and my hobby is to better myself to keep all that I hold dear safe," Naruto said. On the inside, the seasoned Jonin was a little surprised that someone so young had such icy eyes, but he didn't even bat an eyelash. As Kakashi reflected on his deceased teammates and sensei, he thought, Kyuubi caused more harm than anyone could imagine. Before coming up with the ideal test to administer to his cell, Kakashi thought, I'll make sure something like that never happens again. Tomorrow the real test will begin, and if you pass all 3 of you will be genin, but if you fail it's back to the academy with you, Kakashi said, standing and facing all 3 of his students. This earned him the shocked look he had hoped for. With a stifled laugh, Kakashi remarked, the passing rate is 33% and we will start at 8 sharp. And a little hint, I wouldn't eat breakfast if I were you, before leaving his 3 students to pout, brood, or looked perplexed. The silver-haired Jonin thought, we'll see if the fangirl, the Avenger, and the Enigma can make the cut. After the group split up, Naruto made his way straight to Konoha's retail area. Naruto reflected on how he became a genin and what was inside his body during the 2 hours he had to wait for his sensei. Whether he liked it or not, the Shinigami was now a part of him and would not go away. He was utterly terrified by the idea of being a death god, but he wasn't particularly terrified of wielding a sword. The only issue was that, fearing that he would murder them while they slept, no one in the village would sell him a sharpened sword. As a result, Naruto had to purchase a wooden sword and rely on someone to teach him how to wield it. However, the bottomless pit he referred to as a stomach was begging for food before he had even started to consider potential teachers. Before heading to his favorite ramen shop, Naruto told himself, I need food for now, but I'll figure this out later. To his astonishment, Team 8 and Team 10 were there getting ready for the following day. It appears that his group was not the only one who had to take an exam the following day, and everyone appeared anxious. Hinata, you know you are good enough to pass, and even with Kiba on your team, Shino more than makes up for it, so you guys are assured to pass, Naruto told the girl, who appeared to be reverting to her previous insecure self. With his stomach full and his mission accomplished, Naruto went home and attempted to get some sleep for the next day. Making fun of Kiba was worthwhile because he saw his friend smile again. Dreams Naruto only knew that whoever he was furious. No, Naruto was more than angry as he watched his eerily familiar body raise the forest around his ancient Japanese-style castle in the midst of a red sky. All of the servants were huddled inside, praying that their master wouldn't vent his rage on them. It appears that they had good reason to hide. Like his Junshu chakra, a red chakra erupted from his body, but this time, the crimson chakra scorched the ground beneath him and melted everything it came into contact with. A lone servant emerged from behind him after a larger portion of the forest had melted. The poor woman refused to look him in the eye and was shaky in her shoes. Following a few words, the red chakra faded and transformed into what appeared to be 9 long, spear-like tails. Before a grin appeared on his face, Naruto dismissed the girl and headed back to his castle. Naruto's silent flashbacks finally made him hear something. The only words Naruto heard before his body began to change and his surroundings turned black were, the humans will pay. Naruto woke up in a cold sweat, knowing that whatever happened next would have an immediate impact on all people worldwide, and for some odd reason, he thought it had something to do with Konoha in particular. Naruto chose to take a long shower to get rid of the sweaty odor and try to make sense of another one of those familiar dreams after realizing he had woken up an hour earlier than expected and checking his alarm clock. Naruto couldn't resist preparing his own breakfast with 30 minutes to spare, and by the time he arrived at the designated meeting spot, he had consumed a solid 5 bowls of ramen. The boy thought to himself, it's cheap, but it gets the job done, and then he saw Sakura appear as a zombie. The girl didn't seem to get any sleep at all, and judging by the sound of her stomach, she also didn't eat. As he said his hellos, Naruto felt sorry for the girl, but he forced himself to keep his feelings to himself by thinking, she should be ready for anything. But Naruto couldn't help but laugh when Sasuke entered, appearing as though he could kill a Jonin with a single glance. Naruto chuckled to himself, serves him right for being such a prick in the academy, as he tried to look cool by brooding on the other end of the training field, something he was now terribly failing at, thanks to his stomach. After 3 hours, Kakashi arrived at the training patch at precisely 11 o'clock, breaking his record for being the most late. Naruto had finished his meal and was prepared to leave, but his teammates had to make do with a feeble glare at the sensei and Sakura shouting, "You're late." As he observed his eager pupils, Kakashi saw that Naruto was the only one who appeared to be alive and was demonstrating this by stretching in preparation for his test. Good to see that at least one of my students is capable of independent thought. Before offering the feeble justification, I got lost on the path of life, Kakashi thought. Let's see if he can think outside the box now. This only made Sakura even more irate. Kakashi knocked out a Chunin-level genjutsu from Sakura and said, "Good, but I don't recall telling you that it was okay to start, or even give any directions." He pulled out 2 bells and looked at the pink-haired girl with his now upside down eye, who was blushing. "To pass, you each have to retrieve a bell," Kakashi said, fully opening his lazy eye to demonstrate his seriousness. Sakura remarked, "But Kakashi Sensei, there are only 2 bells," stating the obvious. Sakura was feeling uneasy as she looked at him, and the fact that he was using one of her strongest genjutsu without even blinking only served to confirm her suspicions. After the boy's failed charge attempt, the cyclopic Jonin threw Sasuke to the ground and said, "Well, that means one of you is going to go back to the academy, assuming that any of you have enough skill to take a bell from me. I'm setting the timer for noon, and by the looks of it, you only have 45 minutes before time is up. Come at me with everything you have and don't even bother if you aren't coming at me with the intent to kill." Luckily for Sasuke, Sakura had taken over and used another of her strongest genjutsu while Kakashi was preoccupied. This allowed Sasuke to flee with her before Kakashi chose to do more than damage the boy's pride. The two were concealed in the trees and watched in astonishment as Naruto, wearing his idiot mask at full power, stood directly in front of Kakashi without moving an inch. Kakashi looked at Naruto and said, "You're a bit off, aren't you? And here I was thinking that you were the only who could think for himself." He then pulled out a brand new limited edition copy of Icha Paradise that he had obtained through means he didn't want to discuss, shaking the last of the genjutsu from his vision. "I'll let your imagination do that." Naruto charged in blind rage as Kakashi had predicted, and he grinned when Kakashi subdued the boy before giving him a life lesson that the boy would remember. The purpose of Kakashi's wild leaping attack was to weaken his defenses, and now that Naruto was sufficiently close, the boy unleashed a Chakra Shaku Tama. Kakashi could only widen his eyes before being consumed by the Chakra blast. Before pain flared between his cheeks, Naruto, who had just landed, was grinning beneath his idiot mask. Naruto turned around to see Kakashi stabbed him in the ass with a kunai before feeling an explosion. As her friend shot into the air and then vanished, Sakura couldn't help but flinch for him. What did Naruto do? When Sakura recognized that what Naruto had done wasn't a bushin, she asked herself. She knew she had to find Sasuke, so she moved from where she was. She didn't want to be close to her crush, but in the brief moment she spent watching Naruto's fight, none of them stood a chance of defeating Kakashi by himself. Since Naruto's Junshu chakra blended with the surrounding natural chakra, Kakashi had little to no chance of finding him unless he was staring at him. Meanwhile, Naruto was concealed in a tree close to where Kakashi had battled his clone, but as Naruto weighed his and his teammates' circumstances, that thought alone was consoling. "Shit, I couldn't hit him even with a clear shot and the element of surprise." Before searching for Sakura and, with considerably less zeal, Sasuke, Naruto thought to himself, "At least he used that jutsu on the clone instead of me. I got a good batch." As he hid underground, safely away from Sasuke's Kaden, Kakashi thought to himself, "One knows Kage Bushin, one is skilled in genjutsu, and the last is the only surviving Uchiha. Gukaku no Jutsu." When he felt a genjutsu fall on him for the 3rd time, Kakashi grabbed the Uchiha's legs and pulled him underground before starting his talk on looking underneath the underneath. In a split second, Kakashi gave Sakura a taste of her own medicine after telling himself, "She's good, but this is getting tiring," and navigating through the waves of vertigo. Unbeknownst to him, Naruto was closer than he had anticipated when Kakashi ran off to find his final hiding student after 2 of his students were rendered incapable. Naruto approached Sasuke after emerging from the woods, making sure to wake Sakura from her genjutsu induced slumber. When the girl realized that everything Kakashi did was phony and stopped muttering Sasuke-kun while she slept, he convinced her to join him. Before approaching the irate boy who was buried from neck to neck, Naruto thought, "Now for the hard part." Before hearing Sakura gasp, Naruto squatted in front of Sasuke and began, "I know you don't like me, and for all I care you could burn in hell. But as you saw from my fight and what position you are currently in, we don't stand a chance fighting him alone," Naruto said, snickering before continuing, leaving the impression that Sasuke had picked up on it. "What did you think that I was going to do? Come out and say we need your help, Sasuke?" he asked the girl, glancing at Sakura. Before she could respond, Sasuke asked, "So what are you suggesting, Dobi?" grinning at the boy from where he was in danger. Before allowing Sakura to speak to Sasuke, Naruto had to use all of his self-control fibers to fight the dark urge to beat Sasuke's face in with a Chakra Shaku Dageki. Instead, Naruto merely twitched slightly from his new nickname. "You cannot defeat Kakashi. Sensei by yourself. Sasuke.kun. Sakura said in a soft voice, he's a Jonin for a reason, and the only chance we will have is if we team up. Naruto and Sasuke were both shocked by what had just transpired, and she said, no way, and Sasuke, without saying, there's anyone hotter than, between them. Sasuke complained as he looked at the girl and then whispered, I'll do it, but Naruto had already put his hand in the ground and used his Chakra Shaku Dageki to pull him up. Naruto then turned to Sakura and grinned slyly, whispering, okay, here's the plan, before dropping Sasuke directly on his ass. 5 minutes remained, and Kakashi couldn't help but think, and here I thought this group might pass, as he read his little orange book. His maybe. Students came at him from all sides, and he didn't even look up from his book. He sidestepped Sakura and then reached for Sasuke, only to get a handful of air. Genjutsu, Kakashi thought, then added, but it's not just Sakura's, no, this genjutsu saturated the area with chakra, and before he knew it, he had fallen into their trap. Dispelling the genjutsu took a lot more chakra than the previous 3. When he looked around, he saw Sasuke holding a copy of his Icha Paradise in front of him, and Naruto holding 2 bells. Alright, Naruto, you seem to have the bells, but who is passing with you now? They have surpassed my expectations, but it's time for the final test, Kakashi inquired. The Jonin muttered to himself before turning to face Naruto. No one, because if only 2 of us pass, we would break up this winning team, Naruto said, grinning and lowering his idiot mask as he met his gaze. Correct, folks? Sakura nodded joyfully, and Sasuke simply smirked at Naruto. Taking that as a yes, Naruto turned back to Kakashi and said, and besides if you fail us we'll be forced to burn your book. He gave the man his foolish smile, but his eyes told Kakashi he wasn't lying. Team 7 passes, Kakashi sighed, then turned his now inverted eye, which was fixed intently on the small orange book that no one had witnessed him pick up. First mission begins at 8 sharp, was the final thing he said before vanishing in a cloud of smoke and a perverted laugh. Well, seeing as we are now a team, maybe we should get to know each other better, Naruto said, turning to face his new teammates, before guiding them to his preferred ramen shop. With a brown cat hissing in his arms, Naruto remarked to himself, genin life is overrated. After Naruto's initial wave of murderous intent, it dared not bite or scratch him again, but that didn't stop it from ruining Naruto's life. When the boy gave the cat back to its controlling owner, he thought, this is the 4th freaking time today. The Fire Lord's wife was on the verge of strangling the cat as it made a desperate attempt to flee. As Naruto walked to the Hokage's office to pick up his pay, he thought sadistically, perhaps if she squeezes hard enough, she'll break the cat's spine and it won't be able to run anymore. Even though D-class missions were terrible, Naruto needed the money and could train alone later with the extra time. Kakashi, who was on the verge of using his ninken dogs on the cat and declaring that they had found it dead, was among the members of Team 7 who were suffering from the monotony of the same mission. However, Naruto intervened before Kakashi could respectfully ask for a higher level mission to test his team. Hokage. Sama, Naruto began, shocking everyone. He always used Jiji, or old man, when addressing the man, but now he was strangely courteous. Sarutobi thought to himself, he must want something, and took a puff from his pipe. The elder Sasuke said, you know Naruto, you don't have to address me by my last name, you can always call me Sasuke. 1. To which everyone in the room gave him a disbelieving look. The younger half, Sakura, Sasuke, and Naruto, were shocked that he had the same name as the Uchiha survivor, while the older half, Kakashi and Iruka, were shocked that he was allowing a genin to call him by his first name. Figures. The Uchiha, who value power, must have believed that naming one of their sons the powerful professor would make him equally powerful. Naruto turned back to the Hokage after thinking, too bad Sasuke is too much of a prick to ever beat me. Naruto ignored the younger Sasuke, who was acting like a peacock at the mention of Sasuke. Sama, and said, okay Sasuke. Sama, could you please give us a more challenging mission, like something in the C class? Ignoring Iruka's outbreak, Naruto thought to himself, he's more delusional than his fangirls if he thinks I'll ever say that to him. The elderly Sasuke turned to face Naruto, waiting for him to begin. Now Iruka, maybe if Naruto could show me how much he learned as a genin and prove to me he knows what a C-class mission entails, I might let them have it, he said. This was the only instance in which his team didn't believe in him. Therefore, deciding to make use of some of the incredible wisdom the older Sasuke had passed on to him, Naruto started. Well, there are several class of missions, starting with D class like we just completed. These are meant to build teamwork and trust among a genin cell without putting them in harm's way. Next is C class, which is done primarily by genin who have established a teamwork basis. At this level, they do not engage other shinobi, but do fight against bandits and other types of untrained rogues. From there, start the B-class missions that are done by chunin and special jonin. Here we will engage enemy shinobi of the same level or lower, and the risk of death is much higher than that of the lower class missions. Above that is A class, and that is reserved for full-fledged jonin who are willing to engage shinobi of the same level. This class has a higher mortality rating and is only giving to the most elite jonin, before Sasuke intervened. The boy noticed that his team was slack-jawed and that Kakashi was observing him with a critical gaze. Before Naruto continued, the white-haired jonin mused, "Looks like there's a little more underneath than I thought." Naruto asked, "So is that good enough to get us the mission?" He knew he could have said more, but genin aren't supposed to be aware that only Anbu, the elite of the elite, accepts these assassination missions, and that there are S-class missions of village security. The fact that Naruto simply repeated, in detail, a textbook solution to the shinobi mission class system without making any mistakes or adding extra information that he shouldn't have known left Sakura dumbfounded. As Naruto faced the Hokage, Sakura asked herself, is this the same boy, who would only answer questions when Iruka was picking on him? On the other hand, Sasuke was impressed by Naruto's level of knowledge, which he concealed behind a faint look of surprise. Before focusing on the Hokage with whom he shared a name, Sasuke reflected, I suppose he's worthy to be my rival after all. Knowing that they would no longer be pursuing that cat, Naruto returned the Sandame's approving smile. Naruto noticed that his team might ask him some questions later as he watched Iruka scuttle off to fetch their client. Remembering the good times when he didn't have to worry about catching a cat at least 4 times a day, Naruto thought to himself, oh well, it's better than them thinking I'm some sort of idiot, who just happens to be able to destroy trees with raw chakra. Naruto and his team turned to face his client when they heard a knock on the door, but what they saw wasn't what they had hoped for. Well, what do we have here? A blonde midget playing shinobi. Are you sure that he can protect me? Their client, a man in his late 50s at the latest, said before introducing himself as Tazuna. He smelled like he was rarely sober. What the devil? He not only calls me short, but he also has doubts about my abilities. Oh, Naruto thought. I'll give him something that he needs protection from. However, Kakashi, who was not only serving as Tazuna's human shield but also avenging the man on Naruto's behalf, prevented Naruto from killing the man. Kakashi said, I'd advise you not to insult my students Tazuna. They're trained shinobi who can kill you, especially the blonde one you just called a midget. Pausing to let the man see a furious Naruto scratch the door and flick a finger at him, I'll let you guess which one. Naruto grinned at the now frightened man before Kakashi interrupted. Now that we have that out of the way, Tazuna, I am a jonin, and I should be more than enough to stop anyone who may want to harm you on this C-class mission, Kakashi remarked, observing Tazuna's anxious expression. After saying, we meet at the gate in an hour, read 3 hours. Kakashi turned to face his team and departed in a cloud of smoke. Before stating out loud, maybe Kakashi knows how to use a sword, Naruto spent his 3 hours packing his extra clothing and equipment and examining the wooden sword that was lying next to his bed. Naruto, with his equipment and wooden sword strapped to his back, looked around and saw that Tazuna was the only person at the gate. The elderly man appeared extremely angry, and upon seeing Naruto, he made an instant effort to apologize in the hopes that he wouldn't notice what else the boy was capable of doing. Naruto relieved that he had not informed the man that Kakashi is frequently a few hours late. Don't worry about it. Just think of standing here for the last 2 hours as payment, he said. Both of his teammates arrived shortly after, and they arrived just in time to hear Kakashi's weak defense. I was held at the hospital after saving an old lady from a raging fire, Kakashi said, reading from his orange book, which Tazuna recognized right away. For good humor, Sakura yelled, liar. Kakashi simply shrugged. Unbeknownst to everyone, an elderly woman thanked her young, silver-haired savior for saving her from a burning building across town. After discussing which Icha paradise was the best with Kakashi, the team promptly departed with their client. Kakashi said, a little too loudly for his students to hear, Tazuna, I beg to differ, but when Mako and Hana crashed Yugito's session with Sakura wasn't the best part. No, my friend, when all 4 girls invited Keiko over for a session was the best part. As Sasuke struggled to expel the mental images and Sakura was furious that her name was in a perverted book, Naruto simply thought, this is going to be a long trip. After 3 hours, when Naruto first saw the strangely suspicious puddle in the middle of the road after it hadn't rained for days, he thought, finally something to do. However, after giving it some more thought, the boy realized, if they think that hiding in a puddle when it hadn't rained for days is tactful, maybe this won't be so fun. In order to save time and avoid firing a Chakra Shaku Tama at the puddle, Naruto chose to wait and observe the peculiarly positioned puzzle in the hopes that someone other than Kakashi would notice the disturbance. After a minute or so, Sakura stopped kissing Sasuke and turned to face the puddle, so the lone Uchiha was unaware of their danger. Swish! The puddle dweller's chain, which was attached to what appeared to be matching gauntlets, had torn Kakashi to pieces in less than a second. As one brother hurried him and the other Sasuke, Naruto thought, geez, these guys must be broke if they can't even afford to get a set of gauntlets for each of them. Naruto followed the aforementioned Uchiha's example by throwing a kunai next to Sasuke's shuriken to secure the chain and render their attacks immobile. Naruto chose to quickly end this by striking Sasuke in the stomach with a half-powered Chakra Shaku Dageki before using an advanced taijutsu combo on one of his brothers while he was standing in front of Tazuna. Naruto gestured for Sakura to do her share as he watched the man collapse over what appeared to be broken ribs. Inspired by Ino, Sakura used a genjutsu to extract some information from the captured nins in what appeared to be a terrifying demonstration of hypnosis. After a brief moment of struggle, the men were struck by the full force of the genjutsu, and they began to reveal secrets to one another. The brother on the right said, I wet the bed until I was 15, my brother is a closet pervert, and we work in a gay bar for extra cash, before resuming his genjutsu induced slumber. In an attempt to get a direct response, Sakura pretended not to hear that and said, okay, who are you working for? The nin uttered the words, we work for Momochi Zabuza, got a recent job, lots of cash, Gatu, bridge builder, before dying. It was okay with Naruto, who had more important things to do, that the genjutsu had run its course and that he and his brother would be gone long enough to pick them up on the way back or until someone came and killed them. However, Kakashi appeared before Naruto could touch their deceitful client. He was relieved to see that nobody on his team was taken aback by his appearance. Good work. Your teamwork was flawless, and you managed to pull some information out of your captured enemies. Very shinobi-like, the man said after noticing this, making all three of his students feel proud. Some more than others, like Sasuke, for instance. Kakashi turned to the bridge builder and started to lash out at him, revealing the reasons behind his deception about the mission level before threatening to kill him for it. Kakashi's suggestion would put Naruto on the streets, but Naruto was willing to beat the living daylights out of the man for lying to him before finishing the mission. Naruto needed to pay his landlord, and C-class missions weren't cheap. Kakashi, you heard the man. The wave won't survive without the bridge, and I don't know about you guys, but I know how harsh the world can be and that's something no one should experience, Naruto said, preventing Kakashi from terminating their contract. He then turned to his teammates. Sakura appeared a little less certain, but Sasuke was prepared and displayed it with his arrogant grin. The benefits of impressing Sasuke and strengthening herself to defeat her opponent outweighed the drawbacks of her logic, which resulted in her death or irreparable damage. The aforementioned boy turned to Kakashi, who was still aiming for his kunai knife, and nodded at Naruto. I've been overruled, but this mission is now considered an A-class mission. You better be able to pay later, Kakashi said, letting out a sigh as he turned to face Tazuna. He then turned to face his team. From here on out, we have to be on full alert. The two you just faced were the Demon Brothers of the Mist and were of the Chunin rank. With that in mind, the next person we encounter will be at least Jonin, so are you sure you still want to continue? Kakashi asked, staring intently at his teammates. He was now missing one teammate and wore a shoddy eye patch because he recalled what happened to his team when they went in over their heads. Knowing that a Jonin could emerge from the mist at any time, Kakashi knew his students were on edge as they crossed farther into the mist-covered field. To be honest, they should be. Taking Sakura and Tazuna with him, Kakashi shouted, "Get down!" as he heard the faint whistle of something cutting through the still air. Oh no, Kakashi said to himself. I knew there was something wrong with that rabbit Naruto almost killed earlier, as he stood up and drew a kunai. A snow-white rabbit had just happened to cross their path in the middle of summer, but Kakashi was so engrossed in his book that he dismissed it as an escaped lab animal. Kakashi cursed himself for being irresponsible and felt a twinge of fear as he gazed up at the enormous Zanbato that was wedged in a nearby tree. A swordsman in the mist this far out? As the mist cleared and his opponent became visible, the silver-haired Jonin thought to himself, damn, I'm going to need my Sharingan. Gotta make this fast. After turning to Kakashi, the man dressed like a cow turned and spoke. The man said, Sharingan Kakashi, it will be an honor to kill you, and Sasuke thought, Sharingan Kakashi. Zabuza laughed before he said, anyone who reads their bingo book would know of you, but for you to know me will make it an even greater honor when I cut off your head with Kabikari Hucho. Head-chopping cleaver, before Kakashi interrupted, so my reputation precedes me, demon of the mist, Momochi Zabuza. Zabuza whispered, Muon Satsujin Jutsu, silent homicide technique. But Kakashi stopped his sword swing with his kunai before he could kill Tazuna. In an instant, he had broken their formation to protect Tazuna. Regretfully for Zabuza, Kakashi wasn't finished and hurled the silent murderer into the neighboring lake with a war cry. Kirigakure no Jutsu, Zabuza said as he rose from the depths, just loud enough to startle the genin and worry Kakashi, who lifted his head and showed his Sharingan eye, thereby kicking Sasuke. Zabuza said, good job Kakashi, now take off the kid gloves so when I kill you, you know that there was absolutely nothing you could have done, his voice echoing from every side. How does someone outside the Uchiha clan have a Sharingan, while I can't awaken mine? The boy thought. A real master of swordsmanship in the hidden mist, Before he felt Zabuza's breath on his neck, the Kopinen thought, this should be a challenge. While concealed in the fog, Zabuza uttered the words, where should I hit first, the heart, kidney, lungs, or brain? Merely listing a few of the lethal targets. Kakashi ducked under the swing, then drove forward, stabbing Zabuza in the stomach. If it hadn't been a Mizu Bunshin, mist clone, he would have killed the man. The man who builds bridges, before approaching Tazuna and preventing the blow that would have killed him, Kakashi reflected, putting the man in a position where Zabuza could kick him back in exchange for the kick Kakashi had delivered earlier. When Kakashi imitated Zabuza's previous appearance and exploded through the water, he placed his kunai to the missing Mist Nin's neck while Zabuza remained on top of the water to ensure the Jonin was dead while he watched the man sink. You lose Zabuza, declared a dripping and furious Kakashi. To his surprise, however, Zabuza merely laughed before uttering the words, you fool, which immediately put Kakashi on guard. In the seconds that followed, the man dissolved into water and was placed in a Suiro no Jutsu, water prison. When he was captured, Kakashi's only thoughts were, shit Kakashi, you really fucked up here, get the children to run with the bridge builder and maybe they can escape. They threw his... Those who don't follow orders are trash, but those who desert family are worse than trash, and fought off Zabuza's Mizu Bunshin as they came ashore, which shocked Kakashi, who was relaying his message to his genin cell. You can't escape me, you will die just like your sensei here, Zabuza said as Kakashi keyed in on the man through the watery cell. He then proceeded to ramble on about how he kicked his entire class to become genin. While her two teammates simply repressed their fear, Sakura bit back the bile that was escaping her mouth, causing predictable reactions. When the blonde shocked him by using his new sword to destroy the clone, Kakashi watched what appeared to be a hopeless situation. Shit, was all Kakashi could think as he turned back to face Zabuza and saw the insane sparkle in the mist swordsman's eyes. After obtaining a Mizu Bunshin to guard Kakashi's prison, Zabuza said, so we have a swordsman, come forth and let's see if that wooden toy isn't just for show. Naruto cursed himself for bringing the sword, accepted the man's challenge, and proceeded to Zabuza's waiting area by applying some of the Chakra control he had learned from the elder Sasuke. As he was about to speak, Sasuke was taken aback by his teammate's skill and heard a tap. His mind raced immediately, and then he received his response. The boy waited until he heard the second sign to finish the plan, waiting for Naruto to vanish into the mist. Naruto was aware that he would lose this battle. All Naruto had was some practice swinging the sword as he grew accustomed to the weight, while Zabuza, one of the fabled 7 mist swordsmen, had years of training. Naruto wrapped his Jushu chakra around the sword and swung it at Zabuza, who ducked and attacked. After that, it became one-sided as Zabuza, who was beating the boy into submission with a mix of taijutsu and kenjutsu, pounded Naruto into submission. Naruto could only hope that he would be able to withstand the excruciating blows to his face and body and block every sword slash. Zabuza soon became arrogant, and Naruto struck as soon as that occurred. Naruto made an all-or-nothing slash on Zabuza after slipping past one of the man's careless sword swings and letting out a war cry that allowed Sasuke to attack. When Zabuza attempted to kill him after he missed, Sasuke's Fuma Shuriken entered the fray. When Zabuza saw that the first Shuriken had escaped him and had just finished destroying the clone that was holding Kakashi, he leapt over it and blocked the second one that was hiding in its shadow. Zabuza thought, oh shit, as Kakashi charged, watching the Kopinen emerge from his prison, ready for round 2. Before falling to the ground, Naruto was able to return to his team. He gave Sasuke a thumbs up while still conscious, thinking, maybe he's not such a prick after all, and then drifted off to a nice, restful sleep. While there Sweden, Suiryuden no Jutsu, Water Release, Water Dragon Blast. Clashed, Kakashi had Zabuza on the ropes. With lightning speed, he passed Zabuza and used a Suiden. Daibakufu no Jutsu, Water Release, Great Waterfall, before the man, shocking him and sending him flying into a nearby tree. Kakashi was on the verge of killing his fallen victim when a hunter. Nin appeared and stabbed Zabuza in the right side of his chest after multiple needles pinned him in the neck. Weird, Kakashi thought as he lowered his head over his Sharingan in an attempt to save some chakra before fainting. My partner and I have been searching for Zabuza for months. Thanks to you, we were able to capture him today, the hunter Nin said, turning to Kakashi before a shorter masked Nin emerged. This Nin differed from the first one in that it had ebony hair instead of ivory. The shorter, dark-haired one said, "Thank you," before he and his companion vanished in a whirlpool of leaves after picking up Zabuza. Before he lost his strength and collapsed to the ground, Kakashi thought to himself, "Damn, Zabuza got away." He last heard Sakura running to him and Sasuke complaining that he and Naruto had to be carried. Once more, he was inside the body. Naruto looked around, the strange sensation of almost limitless chakra flowing through him starting to feel normal. This time, the blood-red skies of old Japanese castles were absent. Naruto was in a familiar place this time. He learned the fundamentals of chakra control and practiced with the third in the forest to his right. He nearly drowned while learning to walk in the lake in front of him, and he would have if the older man hadn't saved him by teaching him how to properly float over the water. However, Naruto noticed something for the first time as he surveyed the area, checking off items on his mental checklist of significance. Smoke. His body decided it was time to turn around at that point. Naruto saw something that rocked him to his core when it did. Konoha was on fire, and shinobi who had been brutally murdered were lying around the flames. Despite Naruto's protests, his body refused to even attempt using some of its enormous chakra to put out the blackish fires, which continued to spread. Instead, in a red flash, he destroyed more shinobi while igniting more fire. As Naruto watched his brothers in arms perished at his hands, complete despair descended. Why am I seeing this? I wonder. Have I done this? Is this why people hate me? If so, I hate myself, Naruto said, but his thoughts were interrupted when he noticed something that reminded him of his dreams. The enormous toad had returned, and a man with blonde hair was holding him. As Naruto watched the battle, he came to the realization that he couldn't have done this himself. Gamabunta was about to strike the fourth after his body had restrained him when he noticed the blonde Hokage grinning. He must have finished the hand seals he had been performing since the battle began, and he saw the man leap at him with untraceable speed. The fourth was a shell of his former self when he returned. The unblemished skin that demonstrated his fighting skills was now covered in innumerable runes, and the tanned skin he had acquired from endless hours of outdoor training had vanished and been replaced by a sickly pale white. After examining these chakra pulsing runes more closely, Naruto, or whoever he was, came to the conclusion that Shinigami. Before he was totally gone, Naruto heard the Yondaime say, "Back to Makai with you, Kyuubi, we can finish our fight there," before he felt waves of darkness take control. Naruto felt a chill go down his spine as all of his omnipotent chakra was drawn into his natural body. The Shinigami, the Yondaime, and the Kyuubi, before the waves of darkness overtook Naruto's consciousness, these were the final thoughts that passed through his mind. Naruto shook the darkness in front of his eyes and said, "Got to get up." Naruto nearly forgot how his battle ended because the dream was still bothering him. 1. We were captured, and I am being kept alive to get answers or just to torture, or 2. We defeated Zabuza and the rest of this mission will be a breeze. Naruto concluded as he waited for his vision to adjust. Suddenly, the composed manner vanished, and he became vigilant. Naruto was about to sigh as he looked around the room with one eye when he noticed Kakashi reading Icha Paradise while seated in the room's corner. "I've just been here watching over you, Naruto," the silver-haired ninja said, seemingly reading the blonde's thoughts before Naruto could even consider what Kakashi might have been up to while he slept. Naruto swore he heard Kakashi whisper, "The latter," before the silver-haired ninja simply giggled like a pervert and continued reading his book. "I'll figure out later if that's just his guilty conscience, or if he can just read minds," Naruto thought. An agitated Naruto quickly got to his feet, using his strength of will to escape the obvious pervert. But Kakashi stopped him just before he could reach the door. Although Naruto had never seen their untouchable sensei stand on crutches before, his solemn face was even more startling. "I want to thank you, Naruto. You really saved me out there, and for the past 3 days I worried if that had cost you your life," the masked nin said, glancing directly at the boy. Naruto realized for the first time how much his action had affected the mission. I did all of that, really? No, Kakashi would have managed to get out and would have been perfectly okay, right? As he considered whether or not what Kakashi had said was accurate, Naruto thought to himself. Kakashi muttered, well, at least it's not going to his head, as he considered another of his less modest pupils. Kakashi chose to make light of his student's skepticism by teasing him a bit in the hopes that he would change his mind. Before Naruto could even open his mouth, Kakashi continued, well, Naruto, don't let it get to you, but with you we may have died on this mission. But even with your help, Zabuza is still alive, and I bet anything that he will be gunning for you just as much as he was for me in our last fight, Kakashi said as he hobbled out of the room, leaving Naruto to wonder, and what might that be? Naruto saw that neither Sakura nor Sasuke were there when he sat down to breakfast, but he didn't really care because he had more important things to think about. What is the reason behind Kakashi's desire to see me? Is he already aware of my dream? He would need to use the Sharingan, so it can't be that. Well, it's something else, but what? Naruto pondered as he fiddled with his food. He eventually finished and proceeded to the forest that his sensei had selected, eager to learn the true reason behind Kakashi's surprise. He saw nothing unusual when he stepped into the clearing. Before Naruto could draw any further conclusions, Kakashi closed his small orange book and turned to face him. Kakashi was reading his porn and had his Sharingan securely hidden behind his head. Naruto was totally focused on his sensei, as evidenced by the intensely serious expression in his eye. Naruto, your actions in our encounter with Zabuza saved my life, but it also endangered yours. Zabuza will not underestimate you anymore and most likely will be gunning for you first before anyone else, save for myself, Kakashi stated. Naruto stared at his sensei and thought, as arrogant as that sounds, I know it's true. Starting with Kakashi, Zabuza would target the strongest links in the chain before eliminating the weaker ones. After allowing his words to sink in, Kakashi said, so that is why you are going to have to be stronger than the rest, to startle Naruto out of his reverie. Well, after all the attention he gives the Uchiha, that's a change. Recalling all the occasions when Sasuke received some extra practice, following Kakashi's dismissal of both him and Sakura, Naruto pondered, I wonder if the ass-whopping Zabuza gave him knocked some sense into him. The pink-haired girl didn't mind because she practiced genjutsu with Kunai and Hinata and because Uchiha Sasuke was the center of attention. On the other hand, Naruto was furious because, in addition to being biased, it also contradicted Kakashi's statement that, worse than trash. Naruto, you are powerful, unnaturally powerful for a child your age and have managed to gain that power by yourself with only someone to point you in the right direction. I know I have been paying much more attention to Sasuke, but that is because he has never earned his power, but just takes from others, like most of his clan, Kakashi said, pausing as a distant look covered his eyes. Kakashi, who could sense Naruto's thoughts and surprise, chuckled a little before continuing. This made Naruto question, what other than Icha Paradise could have such an impact on Kakashi? As Kakashi returned to the real world, Naruto pondered. Kakashi gave a small shake of his head and went on to speak. But you Naruto, you who learned on your own, and it would be a waste for me as a teacher to make you become reliant on me as a teacher. Therefore, this is why I will point you in the right direction as Hokage. Sama did before me. Hopefully you will work some of your magic and come up with something to help us in this next battle, Kakashi said before getting up. Naruto pondered, I guess that makes sense, but then why does he still baby Sasuke? As he watched Kakashi struggle with his crutches. After deciding to put that discussion off for later, Naruto simply shook his head and observed Kakashi standing in front of him without a crutch. Kakashi stated, now, I will show you what separates Genin from Jonin, before a tense expression appeared on his face. Patiently observing, Naruto was about to question Kakashi about his actions when the copy.nin interrupted. In his mind, Naruto was screaming, not another test, but he didn't react to Kakashi's words. Come at me, Naruto. If you can hit me once, then you will be ready for the next step, he said. Oh no, the surprise is over because he's already seen the majority of my methods. How'd I get hit? Before creating a clone and switching with it as it charged Kakashi, Naruto gave this some thought. As usual, Kakashi didn't bat an eyelash when the two clashed, but instead of the clone missing a punch and being quickly destroyed, it appeared as though it had collided with a bug zapper. How did he accomplish that? My clone was destroyed and Kakashi remained motionless. Is this the power of a Jonin he's referring to? Naruto pondered as he tried to come up with a strategy to defeat Kakashi's recently acquired clone zapper. He was still coming up empty, and whether it was over it or underground, his clones would be destroyed if they attacked him. Naruto, you just have to land one hit and we can proceed, Kakashi said as he read his book, just as Naruto was about to unleash the big guns. I'd hurry though because this part is the easiest and Zabuza will probably be ready to fight within 2 weeks, Kakashi said. Now I have to hit him, but how? It appears that I won't be able to get close enough to him to use Chakra Shaku, Dageki or anything else taijutsu related because he zaps clones. He has already seen Chakra Shaku. Tama, so I need long range. No, Naruto thought. I need something fresh and unique, something he wouldn't expect me to do. Then a sly smile appeared on his face. I wonder what would happen if I did something that had Sasuke written all over it, but he's expected me to think Naruto like. After giving it some thought, Naruto leapt from his hiding place with a dozen or so other clones he was using to confuse Kakashi's sense of his location. The real Naruto was in Kakashi's blind spot and landed just as his clones struck the barrier, but Kakashi didn't appear concerned because he was sure his electrical field would stop the boy, and he was right. How much beating can this barrier withstand? Let's see. Prior to using his Chakra Shaku, Naruto made no specific requests. When something changed, Kakashi turned around and saw Naruto getting ready to launch a Chakra Shaku. Tama shot after sensing a spike in his chakra. Rather than firing a single shot, the pentacle's central chakra shot out across the 5 wisps of chakra that formed the weaver before launching from their ends. Kakashi now had to decide whether to try to avoid this new jutsu, but his instinct told him that Naruto had already taken that into account, or to hope that his barrier would be strong enough to withstand all 5 of the shots. I suppose there's only one way to find out, Kakashi said before launching an offensive, but this time, rather than reading his book as before, he was focusing on defense. Kakashi appeared to be winning when Naruto's chakra orbs burst out of the blue lightning that was darting in all directions in an attempt to stop them. Kakashi assumed the attack was over after observing the stunned Naruto. Before attempting to restart his barrier after feeling something tap his shoulder, Kakashi thought, and good thing too, otherwise I may have ended up back in the bedroom trying to wiggle my big toe. 1. Kakashi smirked under his mask and said, well, it seems you were ready. It was really cunning to use a new technique in the middle of a battle, knowing that your opponent had planned all your moves. It was stupid on my part to underestimate you, but risky on yours if it hadn't worked where you would be caught in my lightning web. This went against all the mini lessons they had gone through. Kakashi turned around to see Naruto with a Chakra Shaku, Dageki primed and ready. Naruto nodded, taking in Kakashi's words before the silver-haired nin went on. Kakashi questioned, one question though, where did you come up with the idea for that jutsu? And was shocked to learn that Naruto based the multiple shots on Sasuke's Housenka no Jutsu, Phoenix Fire Flower. That wasn't too bad. Chakra Shaku, Gorogoro, Chakra Weaver. Scatter. I like it, Kakashi said, nodding at his student's inventiveness before proceeding to the actual lesson. Okay Naruto, now that you have seen the strength of a Jonin, I need you to understand what you saw. What I just did was element manipulation, which is the usage of chakra to control one of the natural 5 elements. Fire, water, earth, lightning, and wind. I am naturally predisposed to lightning, so that is why I can mold lightning jutsu out of pure chakra with hand seals. You, on the other hand, are air. Kakashi said prior to explaining to Naruto what that meant. Your element is brutishly strong, while at the same time fast as lightning, so what I want you to do is to incorporate your wind element into your kenjutsu, seeing as it is already in your taijutsu, Kakashi said as he closely observed Naruto. His expression was one of obvious bewilderment, and for the first time, it appeared as though Naruto had been asked a question for which he had no answer. The blonde said, so, how do I do this? Which made Kakashi slap himself and draw from his chakra reserves. All right, Naruto, I only have enough chakra to do this once, so pay attention, Kakashi said. After saying that, Kakashi's face reverted to its tense expression as the air around him started to crackle frantically, revealing his chakra as blue lighting first appeared and then turned off, white. This is manipulation of elements. You are imitating the elements around you with your chakra. To help me get the control I need over lightning, I visualize my chakra as lightning darting swiftly from one place to another. For you and Asuma, the Hokage, Sama's son and fellow Jonin, told me that when he uses his wind manipulation that he thinks of the wind as a sharpener around his trench knives, so maybe that will help you, Kakashi said while disengaging his electrical field and sitting down on the conveniently placed patch of grass under him. So sharpening your weapon with the wind, gotcha, Naruto muttered while pulling his Jushu chakra. If the element manipulation was really what he was doing this whole time with his Kenshoken, then maybe this would be easier than he thought. 3 days later, okay, not as easy as I thought, Naruto said to himself while trying to get his chakra to form at his will. The wind-based training had been going well, according to Kakashi, but for Naruto all he had been doing was making a fool of himself. The wind element didn't take as much chakra control as something like water, but the grasp Naruto needed over his chakra was greater than what he had. Naruto figured it had to be the Kyuubi's chakra inside him making it hard, seeing as it alone made up 99% of his chakra, which just about 2% of that was usable. Even then that chakra was more than enough to double Kakashi's chakra reserves along with Sasuke's and Sakura's combined. Pulling the chakra in the circle, Naruto abandoned the idea of sharpening his weapon with chakra for now and was just trying to do simple circle motions he had seen the wind do while making whirlwinds and hurricanes. So far he was having little success, seeing as all he could muster was a small gale spinning around him that wouldn't even deter a kunai if thrown at him. Therefore, after about a day Kakashi had Naruto go tree climbing with his team to focus his chakra before trying, in private, with him to master element manipulation. This is too easy, Naruto thought to himself while running up and down his tree, trying to focus his control to a finer point. Kakashi suggested walking on kunai if that was too easy, so Naruto jabbed his whole stock of kunai into the tree with points sticking out to get a better exercise. Needless to say, Sasuke was pissed that Naruto not only could literally run circles around him in tree climbing, but was on to a harder and more complex method and it looked like he would get that before he even finished normal tree climbing. Why am I so weak? I will never kill him if I can't even climb this tree, Sasuke said to himself while running toward the tree again. Only this time he didn't go higher, but instead was launched off the tree a whole 5 feet shorter than his last attempt. What? Sasuke ranted, getting angrier by the second as he seemed to only get worse. Sakura watched from the branch with a bit of pity in her eye but remained quiet after what happened the first time she tried to help. Sasuke told her to go somewhere and don't hold him back. Pouting a bit, Sakura just watched while saying to herself, "I'll wait until he has sulked a bit until I help," before making her way down and back up again, too. A week later, Sasuke had finally gotten tree climbing down and with that complete. He was demanding Kakashi to teach him more jutsu, which left Naruto in a pickle for without Kakashi to constantly supervise his training. Naruto fell back on what he saw wind do naturally. With that, Naruto had gotten the pushing out and drawing in force of the wind, and with that he could speed up kunai flying in the air, slow them down, and with a bit more chakra control, its flight. Now, Naruto was moving on to more useful abilities like making a shield from his chakra. So far the only way I can get enough spin to block an attack is by moving my hand while I'm manipulating chakra. Let's see if it's good enough, Naruto thought to himself while summoning a few shadow clones. Each clone was holding a kunai and without warning, they attacked. The 4 kunai closed in on Naruto faster than normal. Seems as if the clones are using wind manipulation too. Good, I need all the practice I can get, Naruto said to himself while making a large full circle in the air and deflecting the kunai. The process wasn't perfect, but it got the job done, and Naruto was eager to see how well he could use his defensive abilities. With a poof, 20 clones appeared and Naruto smirked. This should do for now, Naruto thought to himself before his smirk spread to a wicked grin and he started deflecting the blows left and right. 3 days later, it had almost been 2 weeks from their encounter with Zabuza and Kakashi couldn't help but think, are we ready? That one little question caused more gray hairs to appear on Kakashi's already silver head. Not like anyone notices, right? Kakashi thought to himself before getting back to the task. Sasuke had grown much during the 13 days they had been here. With a bit more control, he could start the boy on element manipulation, but without the control, Sasuke was likely to end up burning himself to cinders if he started now. Our hope rests with you, Naruto, Kakashi said to himself, before drilling more tips into the Uchiha's head on how to use Kaden. Ryuka no Jutsu. Fire release. Dragon fire technique. Nodding. Sasuke went back to burning more tree trunks while Kakashi's shadow clone checked in on Sakura. The girl's progress was staggering, at least for the one who would be considered the weak link. I guess Sakura took it upon herself not to slow the team down. Good, we need more kunoichi like her, Kakashi said to himself while watching the effects of her genjutsu with his Sharingan eye. Like most genjutsu, hers was invisible to all, except those with special dojutsu, but unlike most, Sakura was far more advanced with her genjutsu. Watching with transfixed fascination, Kakashi saw Sakura disappear, before reappearing at a nearby tree and making a slash through the air. Nothing spectacular, to the untrained or Sharingan. Eye, that is. Was that Kunare's Megan? Jubaku Satsu, demonic illusion. Tree bind death? Kakashi thought with alarm. For a genin handle, such an advanced technique was alarming, and what made matters worse was that Kakashi knew he hadn't taught her anything, and this skill was the work from another. Maybe I should take my own advice and stop playing favorites, Kakashi thought before going to check up on his last student. When Kakashi arrived, he immediately noticed something was off. Then again, gashes in the ground and turned over trees tend to draw suspicion. Following the path of destruction, Kakashi found himself at a cliff overlooking the small town, and that's where Naruto was training, with about 100 clones. 3. Kakashi watched as his blonde student used his element manipulation to block kunai in midair, launch the weapons back at the clones circling him, and make air's lashes in the same way he did in Zabuza's fight. Wow, who would have guessed that a student could go this far on their own, Kakashi thought while reminiscing back to the small hints he gave Naruto. Flashback. Kage Bunshin helps speed up the process, and remember, try to find a way to wrap your mind on how your element works, was all Kakashi said before going to train Sasuke, and left Naruto standing with a contemplative scowl on his face, thinking of ways to wrap his mind around his element. Final flashback. Wow, that wasn't much at all, Kakashi said to himself, while watching the shadow clones dwindle around Naruto, until it was 1. On .1. Judging by the clone's appearance, it was in charge of his fallen brethren, and he was able to take more than one blow unlike the other shadow clones. He can reinforce his clones already, Kakashi thought, remembering the only man who could sustain the constant strain of sending chakra to clones and keeping them reinforced. Maybe a little of the Fourth's legacy was imparted to Naruto when he sealed the Kyuubi's chakra inside the boy, Kakashi concluded while watching the fight draw out to its last seconds. Naruto had just jumped over the last shuriken that the clone had and used his Jushu chakra with his elemental manipulation to catch the projectiles and launch it back at the boss clone, Taisho Bunshin, who just whirled some of his Jushu chakra around and created a barrier like the one Naruto had done earlier to deflect the flying blades. Landing, Naruto positioned himself in his makeshift sword stance he had grown comfortable with using. Over the 2 weeks, Naruto had gone from a clumsy fool with a sword to a wannabe mist samurai after going through countless ambushes by his clones, and learning to be much more graceful with his sword. It's a start, Kakashi said to himself while thinking of a few people he could unload Naruto off to who was able to teach him a few things about swordplay. Turning back to the battle, Kakashi heard Naruto yell, "Teishirai! Kukagiri! Air raid! Air slash!" and Kakashi watched as the clone did the same. The effect was instant as two bands of concentrated chakra left their wooden swords and met in mid-air. The clash went on for minutes until the real Naruto's attack finally won over and cut the clone in two. Looking at the floating clone with a smirk, Naruto saw it return the gesture, before he fell to his knees. That took up way too much chakra, Naruto complained to himself before trying to think of a way to reduce the chakra needed to make the Teishirai Kukagiri. However, before he could get any farther in his thoughts, Kakashi appeared. "I see you have come a long way in your element manipulation, Naruto," Kakashi said, trying to break the ice. Inside, the Jonin was a bit guilty for neglecting two of his students in favor of one, but it had to be done. Sasuke must know how to protect the Sharingan, Kakashi said to himself while looking down at the boy. Naruto was a bit pissed now that Kakashi wanted to show up when he didn't need his help, and Naruto let it show by saying, "Yeah, no thanks to you, Kakashi Sensei," while paying special interest to his so-called sensei's name. "I guess I deserve that," Kakashi told himself before trying to continue his intended conversation. "Zabuza will be ready for a rematch soon, so be ready and watch your back when I'm not around," Kakashi said before leaving. Staring at the spot where Kakashi poofed away, Naruto said to himself, "When are you ever around, Kakashi?" before taking a well-deserved break. The next day, Naruto woke up to hear Tsunami yell, "Inari, stay back." Jumping out of bed, Naruto grabbed his wooden katana, before making his way out the window and onto the roof. Looking down on the scene, Naruto's mind began sorting through the options: hostage situation, 2 thugs, and 1 whiny brat. Naruto said to himself, remembering his argument with Inari over if he should fight or die. "Fight, of course," Naruto said before hopping down from his hiding place and landing soundlessly onto the ground below. Stalking around his prey, Naruto waited for Inari to attack, and when the boy did, Naruto quickly did Kawarimi to trade places with the boy before meeting swords with the samurai, who were so shocked at the change that they didn't sense his Taisho Bunshin boss clone behind them, until it was too late. Now, with 2 hostages tied up to one of the frames on the house, Naruto left Inari and Tsunami and raced toward the bridge, hoping he wasn't too late. The bad omen Naruto felt only got worse when Naruto saw the thick mist rolling over the bridge. "Shit," I'm late, Naruto said, berating himself for sleeping in. I hope that I can make it in time, Naruto thought to himself while making his way to where he felt his Jushu chakra brush up against Sasuke's and Sakura's. However, on the way there he felt something that was very wrong. Sasuke's chakra was too large, but then again maybe it wasn't Sasuke's chakra. Making his way farther into the mist, Naruto reached where Sasuke's chakra was the strongest, and when he noticed that he was in the wrong place it was already too late. Kimimaro of the Kagaya clan, said a monotone voice before a white flash caught Naruto's eye. Without missing a beat, instinct took over and Naruto's hand moved in a circle, altering the air currents to prevent the white projectiles from ripping into his skull. Naruto glanced at his opponent and drew his sword. The white-haired teenager, who wore long, dark blue pants and a thin, sleeveless shirt of the same color, was as emotionless as a hyuga. Naruto's instinct told him to be alert whenever he saw his gloved hands pointing at him. Naruto was immediately tense as he watched his opponent drop his arms and start talking, especially when the Kimimaro boy's mouth moved more than was required. As Naruto heard the boy say, "Not many survive my introduction. Well, seeing as you know my name, maybe you should tell me yours." Naruto thought, "He's like a statue." Naruto turned to face Kimimaro, who was still expressionless. "Uzumaki Naruto," Naruto said, stifling a shiver before rushing ahead. Naruto's horizontal sword slash was blocked by another white flash once it was within range. Kimimaro's white sword, which Naruto saw was actually his bone, was pressed up against Naruto's wooden sword. How? The Hokage's file only mentions that they used weapons that no one else could use, but he is definitely a member of the Kagaya clan. This must be the Shikatsumiku, dead bone pulse. Although it was never stated that they used their bones, Naruto quickly realized that the few individuals who returned with the information must not have faced the bone user directly because the boy's kenjutsu and taijutsu combinations quickly overpowered him. Naruto used the energy from Kimimaro's kick to put some distance between him and the bone boy, blocking the heel of the boy's foot with his sword. In an attempt to find a method to approach the bone user, Naruto rubbed his aching face and wiped some blood from his chin. Kimimaro's taijutsu is far superior to mine, and his fist is like stone. Naruto smirked and thought, I suppose it will come down to ninjutsu. Just the way I like it. Kimimaro wanted to know how Naruto used kenjutsu. With that stance, he doesn't shield any important areas, but his arms are already in position for a parry and counterattack when I go for the kill. Your kenjutsu style, what is it? Kimimaro asked Naruto after thinking, I must know what teaching this is. Naruto shrugged and chuckled to himself as he looked at the boy who had asked a question during a battle out of genuine curiosity. Well, I've seen weirder things happen, he thought, dismissing thoughts of his porn-reading sensei. With pride in his voice, Naruto declared, I made it myself. It's called Teishirai, Air Raid. He had made this himself, and while it was a little rough around the edges, Naruto believed that it could be something to be feared with a little training and direction. After raising an eyebrow at the name, Kimimaro began to ask, and why, but Naruto interrupted him before he could finish. Instead of slashing his sword normally this time, Naruto screamed, Teishirai, Kukagiri, and a wave of wind. Oriented chakra erupted from his wooden sword, propelling Kimimaro skyward. A black and blue flash appeared from behind Naruto as he smirked and muttered, let's see how well you do when you are in my territory, changing what had appeared to be a perfect dodge into something else. When Kimimaro saw the flash, she knew it was Naruto, or at least a blonde clone. He was pasted by the blur, which abruptly stopped above him before coming down sword first and shouting, Teishirai, Kukagiri. Kimimaro was hit by another wave of chakra, but he had nothing to dodge. The white-haired boy simply used his bone sword to combat the chakra wave without appearing alarmed. When Kimimaro heard another, Teishirai, Kukagiri, he saw the real Naruto sending another wave of wind. Manipulated chakra at him from behind. The forces clashed, and the whirling air caused vacuum cuts around Kimimaro's sword arm. Kimimaro popped out his forearm bone, caught it, and blocked Naruto's chakra with the ease of practice. Following the defeat of their Teishirai, Kukagiri jutsu, both Naruto closed in and confronted Kimimaro's bone sword with their wooden sword. As they fell toward the ground, the white-haired boy simply held his own. Kimimaro was trapped between two revolving cyclones as Naruto and his Taisho Bunshin clenched their teeth and directed the wind around them to spin in opposing directions. As Naruto and his clone pushed off of the boy just before they hit the ground, but not before firing a final Teishirai, Kukagiri each, Naruto enjoyed the look of surprise on Kimimaro's face as the wind began to tear into him. Naruto and his clone landed on either side of the fallen boy and used air manipulation to lift the mist that had surrounded Kimimaro. The remnants of his sleeveless shirt were torn up, exposing Kimimaro's bare chest, but to their surprise, his body was undamaged. That jutsu, what was it? Kimimaro asked, glancing at both of them. My Taisho Bunshin, handy really, but then again, you've seen what he can do, Naruto replied, grinning with his clone, accustomed to the shinobi's peculiar ways. Well, Uzumaki-san, you are the first person in a long time to have pushed me to this point, Kimimaro said after a brief period of silence. Normally, 30% of my power is sufficient to win most battles I encounter, but it seems I must double my efforts for you, so get ready, he said before extracting the bones for his arm and collarbone. Kimimaro picked up a battle scythe instead, leaving one of the short bone swords on the ground. The ivory scythe had two blades, one extending from Kimimaro's elbow and the other from his collarbone, and it was as long as 3 of his short forearm swords. Kimimaro ran toward the real Naruto, spinning the bone scythe over his head, and if the Taisho Bunshin hadn't gotten there first, he would have taken his head. The clone had pushed up with all his strength, slicing his wooden sword between the 2 scythe blades and blocking the scythe with 2 hands. When Kimimaro realized the clone was helpless, he was going to cut it off from his legs, but Naruto's wooden sword stopped the stab. The clone said, "Thanks boss," and Naruto grunted, acknowledging that he had heard him but was somewhat preoccupied. Naruto found it difficult to keep up with Kimimaro's nearly invisible sword stabs as he launched his own attack, Tsubaki no Mai, Dance of the Camellia, while keeping his clone at bay. Knowing that Kimimaro would ultimately prevail after the first few dozen blows, Naruto chose to use a Chakra Shaku Tate to block the final blow and give him and his clone some time to escape the death trap. The two separated themselves from the bone user after their plan was successful. The two Naruto looked at each other and realized that they would lose unless they disarmed the boy, but how could they disarm someone who had become armed with their own bones? In the back of Naruto's mind, a voice said, "You could use me." Naruto's blackout, which he shook off the thought, allowed Kimimaro enough time to overwhelm his clone. In order to stop Kimimaro's Tsubaki no Mai from attacking from the front, the Taisho Bunshin made continuous circles with his free hand while turning his body to block the side swing that had passed over his head and attacked from behind. Naruto closed the distance between himself and his clone in distress without saying anything, then threw a Chakra Shaku Dageki at Kimimaro's face. When the fist made contact, the boy didn't even flinch. To Naruto's further surprise, he said, "Karamatsu no Mai, Dance of the Larch," through what should have been a broken jaw, before multiple spines protruded from his body. Naruto's wind-based chakra clashed with the cheekbone's spine, allowing the boy to move his hand before losing it. Naruto backed up and launched a Teishirai Kukagiri, which sliced through Kimimaro's short sword and scythe. They had to start over after the clone fled silently. Every strategy that Naruto and his clone tried to come up with to overcome the bone defense ended in failure. "Use me," the voice repeated, and Naruto ignored it once more. However, this time, he didn't lose focus, and he watched as Kimimaro ran forward while uttering Yanagi no Mai, Dance of the Willow. His body's bone extensions lengthened, and then 2 pike-like bones emerged from his palms. Naruto and his clone dodged the open palm strike and engaged the Shikatsumiku user, who was now employing all-out taijutsu plus some spear-like techniques from his open palm strikes. Kimimaro pushed the two into the air by swinging low with his pike, and he was ready to kill with both of his pikes when the Taisho Bunshin used a tremendous amount of wind-manipulated chakra to push Naruto aside, leaving him vulnerable to Kimimaro's death blow. Before anger took over, Naruto sensed the ping of a mental link being broken by death. More Jushu chakra was summoned than ever before Naruto used his most powerful Teishirai Kukagiri. To Kimimaro's surprise, some of the chakra managed to penetrate the air slash and cause a minor cut on his neck where it struck his thick armor bones. Compared to the bones I use for weapons, those bones were at least twice as strong. As Kimimaro told Naruto, "I've underestimated you yet again, Uzumaki-san, and again I am forced to use more of my true power, Tessenka no Mai. Suru, Dance of the Clematis. Vine." He thought, the boy's strength rises when in emotional distress, maybe he is ready for the next level. He then pulled out his spine. Kimimaro remarked, "This is 80%, let's see how well you fare at this level," and then he rushed forward, the segmented sword whirling past him. A small hurricane surrounded Naruto as he saw the spine sword and whipped his Jushu chakra to full power, adding wind manipulation to the chakra. Naruto felt Kimimaro enter his hurricane and come toward the 3-meter long eye as he rushed forward to meet him. Kimimaro arrived just in time to confront Kukagiri, another of Naruto's supercharged Teishirai. However, unlike the previous time, Kimimaro skillfully avoided the air slash and began his graceful dance. When Kimimaro's blows became too frequent for Naruto to avoid, he was forced to use the hurricane that encircled him as a shield. Naruto would run from end to end of the hurricane using guerrilla tactics, hitting Kimimaro in the eye before he fled into the storm walls. Up until Kimimaro began anticipating Naruto's attack pattern and parrying his blows before Naruto could land a clean hit and get away, the plan was effective. As Naruto circled his opponent under the cover of his chakra created storm, he thought, shit, if this keeps up, he will start countering me soon. Since his reserves were less than half of his maximum and creating a Teisho Bunshin would be a waste of chakra, another Teisho Bunshin was out of the question. Perhaps I could, Naruto said, but the voice interrupted him once more. Naruto was about to protest when he heard Sasuke scream, use me, it is the only way, the voice repeated. If you wait, your friend won't be around for very long, you must take action immediately, the voice said. How? Desperate to assist his teammate, Naruto uttered, I don't even know what you are. Despite the fact that Sasuke had never been his best friend, Naruto could not get Kakashi's speech out of his head. Naruto reluctantly complied with the voice's request and was sent the seals, which he recognized right away. Naruto told the voice whose chakra flared slightly, no, I can't use that, I won't unleash the Shinigami. He recognized the cold chakra, but this time he felt his own chakra mixed with it. Naruto's silence gave the Shinigami an opportunity to clarify the true situation. In anticipation of Naruto's answer, the Shinigami baited him, saying, I understand why you are a reluctant child, but you must understand that our last encounter was merely a test, and seeing as you passed, you have been given the right to be my partner in battle. After giving it some thought, Naruto saw that Sasuke's chakra was depleting more quickly than before. As the panic struck, Naruto made his choice. Alright, Naruto thought to the Shinigami, just help me save my team. The cold chakra surged through Naruto's veins through the hand seals, and all of his wounds that his chakra was unable to heal instantly disappeared. Naruto's ragged clothing was replaced by the dark robes of death. Was that really that bad? Tenkan said, well, whether it was or not, you are now his partner, and rule number 1 when partnered with Tenkan is, we never lose, which made Naruto smile. Naruto ran out of the hurricane more quickly than he had ever been able to do before, feeling the icy chakra coursing through his body. Kimimaro was actually expanding his senses while he waited for Naruto to make his move, rather than becoming unprepared. Kimimaro knew and could follow Naruto's movements the moment he ran out of his protective winds. His inability to keep up was the only issue. Kimimaro strengthened his bone armor with additional chakra in an attempt to lessen the damage, but Naruto's new katana was more than capable of matching it. Kimimaro looked down in disbelief as blood soaked into his sleeveless shirt. Is this his actual strength? Has he been suppressing himself all along? As he was overcome by Naruto's new form, Kimimaro pondered. Despite his elegant movements and lethal accuracy, Kimimaro only appeared to strike Naruto's flapping black robe. When Kimimaro aimed for Naruto's temple, he finally positioned himself for the kill after stepping into a sword slash that was intended for the stomach. Naruto's eyes widened as he saw the segmented sword strike his katana and then bend around the parry to strike his skull, and then his chakra began to tingle. A circular wind barrier formed next to his head just before contact, deflecting Kimimaro's blow, and then the wind blew out, pushing the boy away. His skill level has shot up exponentially. Well, I guess I have finally found an opponent worthy of my full attention, Kimimaro thought, erasing all emotion from his face after giving Naruto a brief moment of stunned attention. Hopefully, he will be able to stay for more than a few minutes. Kimimaro felt a smirk creep onto his face and pushed his bone armor to its maximum strength, calling forth his strongest bone to cover his arm. As Kimimaro's body was covered in even longer bones, giving him a more devilish appearance, Naruto could only watch in morbid fascination. His left arm was the most obvious change, as a large bone covered it entirely before condensing with chakra and spinning into the shape of a spear. With his segmented sword in hand and his spear, like arm ready, Kimimaro simply gazed at Naruto before saying, this is 100% and you are the first opponent to see this since my rescue from the Kagaya clan mansion and thus you are the first in years to receive the honor of dying to it. The Jushu chakra flared again, pushing the spear slightly to the left, causing the deadly attack to move into Naruto's shoulder and away from his heart. Naruto hardly saw Kimimaro's charge, and even then he didn't have enough time to avoid the spear's blow. Naruto felt his wind. Manipulated chakra stopped the sword once more, blocking the segment sword's swipe at his head, and then pushed Kimimaro back with a howling blast of wind. How? While tending to the wound on his left shoulder, Naruto thought, I didn't do. Tenkan was determined to tell Naruto what he did and that he was fortunate that it did not strike his sword arm. I did, you didn't. While Naruto simply dodged and weaved through Kimimaro's blows, depending on Tenkan to use a windshield to deflect any attacks that would have gotten through, Tenkan told Naruto, and you should be thankful we are partners or your so-called self-taught skills would have gotten you killed, but have no fear we are still in this fight. And what makes you believe that? Because if you haven't noticed, this bone guy isn't throwing any punches and is at least twice as fast even with all that extra armor, which is, incidentally, nearly impossible to break. Naruto said this to his soulmate before striking him in the face with a fist covered in bones. Naruto used a small amount of his Hake Kenshoken to counter the Bone Boy's move, spinning his body around to block Kimimaro's follow-up, only to have his wind-covered strike cascade over Kimimaro's bones. Naruto told Tenkan, losing hope, you see, that strike had tons of chakra in it and all it did was slid right over his bones. Only because Kimimaro was about his age did the Shinigami soul remain silent as he watched his host take over his life's rhythm. The long spear bone on Kimimaro's arm twisted into a drill, and Naruto could only watch as Kimimaro closed the distance between them with his drill leading the way. Tenkan failed to stop Kimimaro's fist, causing Naruto to fall to the ground. The Shikatsumiku user then moved in for the kill, saying, Goodbye Uzumaki-san. Tessenka no Mai. Hana. Dance of the Clematis. Flower. Naruto listened to Tenkan say, if you want to live, trust me, as he watched everything in slow motion. Naruto simply nodded and exclaimed, Tenkan. Kyuubi, Divine Punishment, split into 9. Naruto saw a man approach him from behind Kimimaro as the cold Shinigami chakra grew tenfold. The man in all black passed the bone user without apparent notice, but to Naruto, he was as conspicuous as Kyuubi's chakra. Naruto could see the majority of the man when he looked up, but he couldn't see his face. The man said, well, about time you decided to accept my help, and he bent down to help Naruto up. Naruto felt energy rise from within him as he fought the darkness that was encroaching on his vision. Tenkan. Naruto stood up on his own 2 feet and asked his Shinigami partner. The spirit replied, of course, and then took hold of Naruto's sword. Naruto collapsed, completely surrendering to the elder man's leadership. Naruto thought, there's no way we can lose now, with all the newly discovered energy pulsing through him, and then a dark light erupted from him and his soulmate. Naruto smirked as he fixed his gaze on Kimimaro after sensing the black chakra subside. Go get him. 5 minutes ago Haku's near. Light speed gave her a significant advantage over the boy in their intense battle with the Uchiha survivor. Even though he couldn't keep up, he made it harder and harder to land a hit that would incapacitate rather than just kill him and be done with it. Sasuke was starting to resemble a pincushion until he unlocked his Sharingan and was able to track her movements down to the slightest twitch. I could knock him out and save the last Uchiha if he would just blink for a moment, Haku thought to herself as she continued to swipe at the boy. It was starting to seem like a good idea to kill the Uchiha and move to help Zabuza or Kimimaro, but the idea of being hunted down by Konoha's best for killing the last of their most precious clan stifled that idea entirely. Since I am the most gentle, I was given the Uchiha. Before Sasuke's Gukakyu nicked her leg and burned some of the clothes before it was extinguished by the speed of her flight, Haku thought, I must not kill him or it may be the end for me and my family. Haku watched the Uchiha with a newfound respect after landing in the safety of an ice mirror. He was now a threat and would be handled as such. Haku came closer with a handful of senbon aimed at her opponent's throat after hurling a dozen at him in a blitz out of her mirror. If she didn't make a mistake, the attack would leave him in a death-like coma and prevent him from fighting, but not enough to kill him. Her first wave of attack was blocked by Sasuke, who then, with incredible speed and skill, pushed Haku's attack aside and struck the girl's mask with an earth-shattering fist, sending a crack down the middle and sending her flying through one of her ice mirrors. Glancing down at the results of his labor, Sasuke grinned. In an attempt to perfect the watered-down version of his already watered-down Chidori, 1000 birds, he had dedicated all of his training time to Kakashi. Slumping to his knees, Sasuke thought, even though it can't cut through lightning, the extra punch was more than enough to win this battle and take me one step closer to defeating Itachi. He had already expended nearly all of his chakra creating the feeble Chidori, and if Haku could recover from the blow, the fight would continue. Sasuke thought Haku was either dead or unconscious after a few seconds, so he let his guard down, and Haku struck. Haku made a last ditch attempt by bouncing off broken glass to her mirror at the top of the ice ring and firing herself downward, right on top of the final Uchiha. Sasuke attempted to battle the darkness that was encroaching from all sides as he felt the 3 senbon pierce his neck. He made one last swing with his fading Chidori, but before he passed out, he broke the remnants of Haku's mask with his fist. Haku felt Kimimaro's chakra rise and Zabuza's decrease as she gazed at the boy who had succeeded in bringing stars into her field of vision. Kimimaro. Nissan must be exerting all of his might. To force him to do that, his opponent must be strong. But Zabuza is in danger, so I have to assist him before we can all work together to address this greater threat. Before hurrying off to assist Zabuza with Copy.nin Kakashi, Haku told herself, Kimimaro. Nissan, hold on, I will bring help soon. About a yard from Naruto, Kimimaro's bone drill had stopped, not of his choosing, but rather after he struck something. Using some kind of sophisticated chakra control, this object, a ring, floated around Naruto. There was a red streak across the center of the jet black ring. There were 9 nodes in the red streak. Kimimaro had no idea what these nodes did, but his senses warned him to be alert and tired. Looking past the ring, Kimimaro noticed Naruto standing behind it, completely composed. To his surprise, Naruto was not only composed, but also grinning as though the fight had already been decided. Kimimaro told himself, I must stay calm, he is only trying to get in my head, as he fought the frown that was creeping onto his face. Kimimaro took a deep breath to calm himself, then exhaled and charged, thinking, this battle is mine, all I have to do is take it. On the other hand, Naruto was grinning at his new look. The ragged garments from Kimimaro's bone blades had vanished, and he was now wearing a black battle vest with 2 shuriken pooches on his chest that was zipped to the top. 2 large pooches were resting on his belt on his black cargo shorts, and a black short-sleeved shirt with bandages tied over both was underneath his vest. His legs were covered in black bandages further down, which led to his now black all-purpose ninja sandals. Naruto was impressed after giving himself another look, but he chose to ask Tenkan, why such an overtone on black? Naruto was relieved to see that the black chain tattoo was gone, but before he could inquire as to its whereabouts, he heard Tenkan remark, you'll find out in time, but it's time for us to find out what the Kukakami, 9 war gods, can do, before directing his chakra into the ring surrounding them. You make me out to be an even larger angst case than Sasuke. The Soul Reaper simply laughed at the joke before stating, black is death's color, and seeing as you are my partner the least you can do is wear the outfit. Kimimaro saw the 9 nodes come to life, and 9 distinct weapons were mounted on each of the black chains that emerged from them. Kimimaro looked up and saw Naruto being fanned from above by the 9 weapons, creating a halo around the miniature death god. When Naruto pushed forward while shouting, Kukakami, Epee, 9 war gods, rapier. Kimimaro felt the calm surrounding Naruto's aura break, forcing him to retreat. The first of Naruto's 9 weapons descended from his halo above and struck Kimimaro. Faster than anything the boy had ever seen, an exquisite rapier, about a meter long and decorated with intricate handguards, struck at Kimimaro. Kimimaro noticed Naruto pushing his palm at him, seemingly jabbing him with the rapier, as he looked past the speeding steel. Kimimaro barely had time to block Naruto's questioning glance before he raised his free hand and shouted, Kukakami. Oh no. 9 war gods. Axe, referring to his second weapon. With a black that was longer than the rapier and equal to the length of the staff that attached to it, a gigantic axe fell from the halo. Kimimaro halted the swing after Naruto's hand went down, but the force of the blow caused him to collapse to the ground below. Naruto and Kimimaro were sent into the ocean below as the chakra from the axe blew through the concrete like a powerful gale. When Kimimaro hit the icy water below, he instantly sent chakra to his feet and balanced himself on top of it, thinking Naruto would follow suit. However, when he looked up, he discovered that Naruto was floating over a spinning dual-bladed naginata instead of touching the water. The blades themselves were about 2 feet long, but the staff between them was no more than 10 inches. Kimimaro watched as Naruto pulled his hand from his side and pointed it at him. The naginata then imitated the action before Naruto screamed, Kukakami. Repuu, 9 war gods. Whirlwind, and the weapon began to spin more rapidly, sending a typhoon out of the handle. Kimimaro was blown back, landed in the water, and then sank to the bottom with nothing to cling to. As if anticipating Kimimaro's next move, Naruto's ring of weapons closed in tight around him as he landed on the water. Kukakami's first set of weapons was that, Tenkan said, it's called Shuki, and they are the weakest set, to get the response he desired. Naruto vocalized it to Tenkan after being shocked to learn that this was the weakest form. Weakest? It simply destroyed Kimimaro, so that can't be true. Tenkan responded to Naruto's assertion by saying, "It may seem that way, but Kimimaro is skilled and this alone will only set him back until he figures out its pattern, and then he will be back on top." While waiting in line, Kimimaro emerged into the water, evading Naruto's rapier and axe. He then swung his segmented sword at Naruto's naginata, wrapping it in the discs of bone before using his bone spear to make the kill. But before Kimimaro could complete his blow, Naruto shouted, "Kukakami! Sume! 9 war gods! Claw!" And a second chained weapon leapt forward from the halo above. A gauntlet was attached to the chain this time, and as it got close to Kimimaro, the metal hand exploded open, revealing 5 sharp steel fingers that effortlessly grasped his chest, preparing him for Naruto's next move. Naruto made a broad arc, dragging his next weapon from the halo above, while spinning his free hand as though he were swinging a chain. When Naruto screamed, "Kukakami! Sumashu! 9 war gods! Smash!" the mace, which had been the size of his skull, swelled to the size of a boulder. Kimimaro sent his own gift before the spiked ball struck his bone. Protected side, sending him packing once more. If Tenkan hadn't used the next weapon himself, Kukakami, Ken, 9 war gods, Sting, his segmented sword would have ripped through the air like a snake and killed Naruto. However, the 6th weapon emerged from the halo and saved Naruto's life. In contrast to a typical double-edged sword, this one featured a central opening that was just sufficiently large to accommodate Kimimaro's sword's spines. After sliding all the way to the bottom, the disc struck the handguard and came to a stop. A burst of pure chakra erupted from the center of the sword, destroying the spine blade and scorching Kimimaro's hand just as Naruto was about to inquire what this did. Chuki, the name of this set, refers to your middle-class weapons. Tenkan concluded his remarks by ordering Naruto to go back to the bridge so they could complete the battle. They are stronger than the Shuki, but they are much harder to use together. Naruto felt a surge of chakra rise from beneath him as soon as his foot hit the concrete. Naruto looked down to see the bridge below him being torn apart by bone trees, and Kimimaro shouting, "Soarabi no Mai, Dance of the Young Ferns," as he emerged from the gap. Hovering over his naginata, Naruto had managed to avoid the bone spires. However, when Kimimaro rushed up the spike he was standing on and screamed, "Tessenka no Mai, Hana," Naruto was forced to depend on Tenkan for assistance. This is it. The Kuki weaponry will soon be available. They pose the greatest threat to you and are by far the strongest. Tenkan hesitated after explaining all of this to Naruto. They are the only 3 weapons that can reap a living soul, so if you are accidentally struck with your own blade, your soul can be sent to the afterlife. With his gaze fixed on Kimimaro, Naruto merely nodded, acknowledging the dangers and the repercussions of making a mistake. "All right, say it with my Kukakami now." As soon as Naruto whispered, "Katana, 9 war gods, Katana," Kimimaro and Naruto appeared on either side of the bridge. After a few seconds, Naruto remained motionless in the execution position, his arm extended in a graceful katana resembling his original Zanpakuto's, imitating his posture. Kimimaro waited for the conclusion of the final battle while standing silently on the other end with his arm outstretched. Not even able to express his shock, Kimimaro stared down at his smashed drill as Naruto whispered, "Kukakami, Heki, 9 war gods, Tear," and he felt cold steel envelop his body. A shattering sound echoed through the bone forest. When he looked down, he saw a sword with many serrated edges tearing through his bones. In an instant, the sword had torn his bone armor off of him, leaving him exposed for Naruto's next move. Tenkan yelled in Naruto's head, "It's time to finish this, Kukakami. Minori, 9 war gods. Harvest," as he withdrew the final weapon from the halo above. Like all the other weapons, the claymore, which hung above Naruto, was jet black from the one-foot hilt to the half-circle blade that topped the double-bladed sword. Then, with lightning speed, Naruto emerged above Kimimaro. He brought down the claymore with a single, clean blow and was ready to take Kimimaro's head and soul when he sensed someone walking across the bridge. This soul was more than sufficient to distract Tenkan. When Naruto sensed that Kimimaro was losing his soul partner's attention, he halted his swing and inquired, "What's wrong?" Tenkan's voice rose toward the end as he said, "There is another, his soul needs to be cleaned, now," and then he pushed Naruto to go find this filthy soul. Naruto left the bone forest, leaving an unconscious Kimimaro on the ground, and proceeded to locate this dirty soul. With the exception of Kyuubi, Kakashi had never experienced so much chakra at once, but that was an exceptional experience. Kakashi thought, but this can't be human, as the alien chakra pulsed some more before subsiding to more manageable levels. Zabuza, we are both busy men and are short on time, so let's cut the games and finish this now. Kakashi called out to him before removing a scroll from his ripped jacket and smearing blood across the exposed paper. After a series of hand seals, Kakashi grabbed the bloody paper and slammed his hands on the ground, letting go of his jutsu and avoiding Zabuza's swipe at his head. Kachiyose. Doden. Suiga no Jutsu. Summoning. Earth releasing. Tracking Fang technique. Additionally, Zabuza was retreating from his unsuccessful attack when the ground rumbled beneath him. Zabuza watched as the earth exploded, revealing a group of ninken, or ninja dogs. Zabuza was held motionless for whatever Kakashi had planned when the dogs bit down on his body before he could even form the seals for a kawarimi. Kakashi stopped a few meters from the mist.nin after walking into Zabuza's line of sight. Slowly moving through the hand seals, Kakashi said to Zabuza, "It seems your mist can fool my eyes, but not my nose." Zabuza's eyes widened slightly as Kakashi's hand began to buzz before being covered in a bright blue chakra. When he felt 3 prickles strike his lightning-covered hand, Kakashi rushed forward, ready to drive his hand through Zabuza's chest. "This is my only original technique. The ultimate in assassination jutsu. Reikiri, lightning blade." Kakashi looked down to see 3 senbon lounging in his hand, held in place by a gloved hand. Kakashi gazed at the face of Zabuza's personal hunter.nin, the unmasked one with charred clothing and hair. The fact that the boy was actually a girl startled him. As Kakashi charged his Reikiri to full power, electrocuting the hunter.nin to unconsciousness and melting the incapacitating senbon in his hand, he thought, this gets more confusing by the second. Kakashi glanced down at the unconscious girl and then back at the enraged Zabuza, recharging his Reikiri. Kakashi believed that this was his final opportunity to eliminate the mist.nin when a big bone emerged from the earth, releasing Zabuza from his captivity and preventing his second killing blow. Kakashi muttered to himself, "Damn it," as he watched his Reikiri fade. He didn't have the chakra to kill Zabuza, even if he wanted to do so right now. Haku appeared to be unable to fight, as did the mist.nin who was holding him on his shoulder. But a voice broke through the dense fog before either man could declare a truce. "So the demon of the mist fails to kill one lone Konoha.nin and his kid team. You're losing your edge, Zabuza," said the voice. Gatu's slender figure was exposed by the man behind it, who stood before a small army. When Gatu declared, "Triple is what I will pay the man who brings me Zabuza's head," the crowd erupted in applause as the battle. Hungry men stood ready. As he prepared to charge, the biggest man screamed before a serrated blade tore through his chest and pulled out his rib cage before all of his men could reach him. The Shinigami's icy chakra soaked through the mist, chilling their bones and leaving them trembling husks of their once. Battle. Ready selves as morale fell like a wounded bird. One by one, Naruto eliminated the men with Kukakami until only Gatu was left. Gatu looked to his left and right, but his army was gone, and he was alone in the fog. He could have sworn he was staring into the face of death as he strained his eyes to see a figure approaching him and entering the clearing. When Gatu realized all the wrong he had done in his life, Naruto lowered his arm and brought the claymore through the dishonest businessman, tearing his body and soul in two. Naruto stood over the cowering man, his claymore ready for the death blow, and he looked into Gatu's eyes. "Your soul will be cleansed," Naruto said in a chilly monotone. Tenkan looked down at his retainer and up at his companions before saying, "Well, it seems I have found a worthy partner. To survive a Shikai, initial release, for so long on the first try is truly amazing, but I can't wait to see what he does with Bankai, before descending back into Naruto's body and waiting for the boy to awaken." Naruto felt the exhaustion of exercising an evil soul, and before he knew it, the exhaustion of his fight with Kimimaro had taken over and he was unconscious. Joyous laughter roused Naruto from his sleep, and when he opened his eyes groggily, he saw that he was under Makai's crimson skies rather than the ever-present mist of the wave. Looking through the eyes of a deceased demon king, Naruto asked himself, "More Kyuubi time?" The sound of this dream was much more difficult to handle than the previous ones because everyone was applauding. Naruto looked around him more carefully and saw that there was more food and wine than there had been at all of Konoha's Kyuubi festivals combined. There are all demons, Naruto thought, observing the various faces and hair colors around him, when he saw that all the chakra levels around him were at least twice as high as his, Kakashi's, and Zabuza's combined. But one signature stood out, and it was the one nearest to him. The creature next to him had a chakra cooling aura like spring water, in contrast to the wild flares of the Yuki in the party. Even though he was too shocked to realize it, Naruto felt Kyuubi smile and glance at the two delicate lines on her neck that were slightly swollen on her bronze skin. Looking down, he saw that the woman next to him was actually the same woman who had gone from trying to kill him to having wild sex with him a few dreams earlier. The woman said, "You know it still stings, or rather, Kyuubi," and to his surprise, rather than being the irate demon lord that the villagers had characterized him as, Kyuubi simply laughed, sending shivers down both the woman's and Naruto's spines. With a smirk on his face, Naruto felt his body continue to elicit sexual responses from the woman next to him. Kyuubi stopped himself short of having a full-out session in front of his guests when he noticed the woman pout and then sigh a little. "But we both know you liked it," Kyuubi whispered, breathing heavily on the woman's bite marks. She let out a semi-silent moan that only Kyuubi could hear during the boisterous party. Kyuubi knew what was wrong and in a surprisingly gentle voice said, "You know you don't have to stay here. I'd follow you to the end of the world, even if it meant going to the heart of the Shinigami capital." His words got the desired reaction and the gloom hovering over her was washed away. "You know I can't do that, and besides what's the point of getting us both killed?" the woman stated before shifting her neck, giving him a better view of his mating mark. "And besides I kinda like being Lady of all Makai, even if it means becoming an enemy to all of my people." The woman finished flashing Kyuubi and Naruto a genuine smile before the dream faded out. Topside, Naruto wasn't in the darkness for long, because after the dream faded away he felt his energy return to him and the need for sleep almost disappear. Opening both his eyes, Naruto saw something that gave him instant deja vu. The smile he was looking at was the exact same one he had seen Kyuubi's lover flash him before his dream faded. Looking at the silky black hair draped over him, Naruto couldn't help but think that he was still in the dream, but when he tried to check he heard, "You shouldn't try move. You were chakra exhausted and you'll only hurt yourself if you strain your body." Looking back at the face above him, Naruto saw that all the similarities the girl above him had with Kyuubi's lover were starting to mesh. The noses, mouths, and eye shapes were the same, but the skin tone and eye colors were different. It was as if Naruto was looking at Kyuubi's lover reborn. Sitting up, Naruto saw the girl move to lay him back down before he said, "There's no need, I'm fine," and to his surprise she just giggled. "You are as stubborn as Kimimaro-kun, so please lay down and rest or you'll never recover," the girl added before laying Naruto down. He grumbled a bit and decided to let it out. "Listen, you don't seem to understand. I heal quickly and believe me, my chakra is fine, so if you will just let me up," but the girl was hearing none of it as she just ignored him and stared, unwinding his bandages. Suppressing another grumble, Naruto just laid back and decided to sneak out as soon as the mystery girl left. Unfortunately, she had no intention of leaving, and as soon as she finished replacing his bandages, she started a conversation with him. "You know I should thank you, because from what Kimimaro-kun told me, you had a perfect opportunity to end his life and you spared him. For that I am in your debt and I will do all in my power to repay you," the girl said. Naruto just looked at her before saying, "Don't mention it." "Haku," the girl cut in before smiling politely. Naruto nodded and continued, "Like I said, don't mention it, but if you want to repay me you could let me get up and we will be just about even." Haku just frowned before saying, "I'm sorry, that is out of my power, seeing as your sensei directed me to take care of you, seeing as you will be our new guide for our life in Konoha." "Life in Konoha?" Naruto mentally yelled while choking on the medicine Haku had just forced down his throat. The girl giggled again before saying, "Yes, apparently Kakashi stuck a deal with Zabuza before you handled Gato, and if they survived he would find a way to help us into Konoha." Naruto just looked dumbstruck at the girl before forcing himself up. His chakra was full and he didn't give a damn what she said. He had a bone to pick with Kakashi. Unfortunately, Haku had dealt with Naruto's type before, and with a few precise jabs with a senbon, Naruto was on his back and paralyzed from the neck down. "Now be a good boy and go back to bed," Haku told Naruto, flashing him another deja vu grin before leaving him in the room to think. Closing the sliding screen door behind her, Haku was about to get something to eat before bringing some food up for Naruto when she saw Kimimaro out of the corner of her eye. He was also heavily bandaged like Naruto, but that didn't stop him from training or saying, "You know your kindness always brings trouble." Looking at her brotherly figure, Haku suppressed a giggle before telling him, "And your need to disobey my orders for bed rest will bring you trouble, Kimimaro-kun, and besides you and Zabuza need a kind person to stay with you," smirking when Kimimaro had no retort. Kimimaro remained stoic before pushing himself off the wall and leaving without a word, but his message had been sent and Haku just stood by the doorway giggling. Going back to her original mission, Haku heard Sasuke yell to Sakura, "Get off me, woman." I'm fine. While Haku got a bowl of rice and fish for herself and Naruto. Watching Sasuke sulk and Sakura sit across from him obviously mad because he was being sour about getting help. The girl just watched as he struggled to get the rice bits into his mouth with his chakra-exhausted Chidori. Sore hand. Shaking her head at the egotistical boy, Haku was about to make her way to Naruto room when she saw Naruto giving it to Kakashi. Kakashi. Sensei, how could you volunteer me for something like that? The boy whispered harshly, trying not to draw attention. Kakashi just slid his copy of Icha Icha Paradise into his jacket pocket before telling Naruto, because you are the only one that is fit enough to do it. Just imagine for a second Sasuke, leading the family of girl who defeated him in battle around town and trying to make them comfortable, or Sakura who would probably be too afraid of Kimimaro or Zabuza to help. So the only logical choice is you. Kakashi finished before rubbing his hand in Naruto's already messy hair and followed the path of life. Perverted. Bastard, Naruto spat in a hushed voice while watching his sensei walk down the hallway reading his little orange book. Sighing, Naruto tried to make sense of his dreams and his new dilemma, and to his luck Haku appeared from around the corner with lunch. Thank God for the little things, Naruto thought to himself before forgetting about all of his problems, for a little while at least. On the road to Konoha, screw God for the little things, Naruto cried out in his mind while shaking off the daggers that Kimimaro was sending at him. He and Haku had a very interesting conversation over lunch, and Naruto found out that the girl was a pleasure to be around when she wasn't throwing senbon at your teammate or jabbing you in the neck with them. The two became fast friends, but Naruto could tell just by the sad twinkle in her eyes that she hid a deep sadness like him, and with that, he realized there were others that could understand him. It was too bad for them that Kimimaro was overprotective of his adoptive sister. Given that he would lose if he fought Naruto again, but he knew that he couldn't win, but at least he would maim Naruto if he had to, and that was enough of a daydream for him to pass the time. Zabuza, being Haku's adoptive father, didn't like the fact that she was so attached to a boy she just met, but seeing as he could defeat Kimimaro, he decided to wait to pass his judgment on Naruto. And oh, what a day that will be, Zabuza thought gleefully while sneaking glances at Kakashi's latest issue of Icha Icha Paradise. Kakashi just let out a sigh before handing Zabuza his up copy and going back to his beloved book. Sakura just shook her head at her pervert sensei and looked back up at the sky. The trip had been the most taxing on her. Not only did everyone else have something to do, person she usually tried to talk to, Sasuke, was still sulking about his loss. Keeping to her vow to stop coddling the black-haired boy, Sakura just let her mind wander as the seemingly endless walking continued. How is it that he defeated Kimimaro? He is stronger than Haku, the one I lost to, Sasuke brooded while looking at the couple chatting merrily. The trip had given him time to think, but it also ate at his overinflated ego. Even after the humbling experience, Sasuke couldn't accept that the dobi of the class had defeated an enemy greater than the one he had lost to. But I have the Sharingan. Sasuke's ego roared while glaring at the boy. Flaring the red irises and black tomo to life, Sasuke stared at Naruto while thinking, what secrets are you hiding, Dobi? The piercing gaze saw straight through the haze of chakra that always surrounded Naruto, but before Sasuke could inspect Naruto any further, the said boy turned around and met Sasuke's stare. With one look, Naruto's tolerance for the whole situation flew out the window. Flaring his Jushu chakra, Naruto didn't suppress his grin when Sasuke had to turn away from the thick layer of chakra blinding his Sharingan. No one saw the secret war between the two boys, but Naruto knew that everyone felt the tension between the two, making the long journey home even more unbearable. It had taken 3 days to get back to Konoha, and Naruto was 3 seconds away from gouging Sasuke's eyes out. Deciding to turn his attention to a hardly awake Sakura, Naruto watched the girl try to stagger home for a well-earned shower after playing peacemaker for him and Sasuke the last 3 days. The girl was about to round the corner when Kakashi called her back for the mission report. Once in the tower, Naruto shot a glare at the secretary in order to keep her from saying anything to him or the guests and proceeded into the Hokage's office. Naruto smirked when he saw the Hokage do a double take before demanding an explanation as to why 3 missing nins were in his office, including the famed demon of the mist, Momochi Zabuza. Saving the old man from having to hear another of Kakashi's lame excuses, Naruto butted in and told the Hokage the whole story of the battle at the bridge. By the end, the Hokage looked surprised and disturbed at the same time. Scanning Naruto's face for any lies, the Hokage nodded when he found none and told the group in front of him, "You are dismissed for the time being. For now I need to have a meeting with my advisors over this matter, so why don't you show the new leaf hopefuls the village while you wait," dismissing the group. Sasuke immediately left to his own estate, probably to brood and train. Naruto told himself while watching Sakura try to walk herself home before she passed out in the Hokage's office. Kakashi simply disappeared before reminding Naruto, "You are in charge of showing our guesses around the village." Grumbling, Naruto walked off in the opposite direction of his two teammates before trying to find someone to help him with the job of guiding 3x. Missed nins around Konoha, and maybe be there to help him if Kimimaro decided he was a little too close to his adoptive sister. Walking by the Hyuga estate, Naruto's prayers were answered when Hinata came through the gates and hurried over to him. Naruto.kun. How did your mission go? Hinata asked while embracing the boy. Noticing the spike in killing intent from behind him, Naruto was sure that if Hinata didn't get off him now he may not see the light of day again. Luckily for him, the girl released him when she noticed the almost inaudible sigh Haku let out. Moving to the other girl, Hinata introduced herself. Hyuga Hinata. The heiress told the girl waiting for a reply. Haku just nodded and mumbled, "Momochi Haku," while pushing down any jealous thoughts in her head. Putting on a smile, Haku started a conversation with Hinata in hopes to make a friend in her new home. "So when did you meet Naruto?" The Hyuga heiress asked her new friend. Much like Naruto, she found Haku to be a pleasure to be around, and when she found out that the girl had spent most of her time with Naruto, the little matchmaker in her head started formulating ideas. During the mission, Haku answered not wanting Hinata to know that they were on opposite sides at first. It wasn't exactly lying, but it still made the older girl feel guilty, especially since it was to such a kind girl like Hinata. "Oh, that's good," Hinata said, dropping the subject when she saw Haku's aura change. Her Byakugan training was advancing quickly for someone her age, rivaling even that of Neji's, so it was easy for her to see emotion changes even without the help of the all-seeing eyes. Smiling, Hinata pointed to her favorite ninja gear shop before starting another conversation. "So what do you think of Naruto.kun?" Haku's heart fell a bit when she heard the added kun to Naruto's name. "Is he taken? Why'd I care so much?" Haku asked herself before she noticed Hinata's eyebrow rise a bit. The Hyuga noticed Haku's aura change to uncertainty and smiled inwardly. The smile grew outward, and before Haku could see the coy look on the girl's face she heard, "Believe me, Naruto. Kun's like a brother to me. A completely oblivious brother, but still a brother, and besides I think that guy over there is kind of cute." Blushing a bit, Haku was about to protest to Hinata's insinuation when she noticed what guy Hinata was looking at. "You can't be serious," Haku asked herself when she saw who Hinata was looking at. Kimimaro was oblivious to the attention he was getting and just kept his glare trained on the blonde in front of him. Haku looked at Hinata before looking back at her brother and telling Hinata, "Well, you have your work cut out for you, because not once have I ever seen Kimimaro.kun smile." "Well, that makes this even more fun," Hinata told her new friend, following them back into the Hokage's tower. Now that the village tour was over, now the official initiation into the Konoha shinobi ranks came. Naruto and Hinata stood outside the door while the three missing nins walked into the Hokage's office. Taking the seat offering each of the battle-tested nin looked at the three people stationed in front of them. They had already met the Hokage, but the man and woman beside him were a mystery to them. The Hokage kept his normal friendly smile on while introducing his two companions. "This is Homura and Kaharu. They are my former teammates and now council advisors. They have been kind enough to set arrangements for you," the Kage told the three in front on him. Sitting back, Sarutobi let his advisors take the floor and direct the meeting. Momochi Zabuza, former member of the Mist's Seven Swordsmen, and contender for the title of Mizuki, willing to going as far as to perform a coup d'etat, Homura stated while sizing Zabuza up. Looking to Kaharu, Hamaru nodded before saying aloud, "I know it will be useless to try and pry into your mind for any secrets you may be hiding," while looking intently at Zabuza's headband. The mist shifted uneasily while ignoring the burning on his forehead. "Damn seal, if it gets us booted out of this village I swear." But Zabuza never finished his thoughts, seeing as Kaharu spoke up. "We know of the binding seal you have to the Mizuki, and we know of the reasons of your failed coup d'etat, but don't hold it against us if we don't completely trust you. So to remedy the situation we are assigning you to a special Jonin team." Nodding, Zabuza hid his relief and scratched the seal under his hiat. It was one of the few times that Zabuza revealed the seal out in public because it was a constant reminder of his servitude to the bastard he once called his Kage. Listening to the old duo ramble on a bit, Zabuza tuned in when he heard the conversation shift. The two came in the door opposite of the one where Naruto and Hinata were waiting. Two figures walked in. Looking at the male and female, Zabuza thought, maybe this won't be boring. Here they are, Mitarashi Anko and Morino Ibiki. They're your partners and your supervisors until you earn the village's trust. So you may not leave the village walls without them or permission from them, otherwise you will be considered a missing nin. Hamaru warned Zabuza before letting him leave with his new team. So what are your specialties? The masked nin asked while walking out the door. Oh, I think you will find them fitting partners, Momochi-san, Hamaru thought before turning to the mist swordsman's wards. Being a firm believer in chivalry, Hamaru started with the girl first. Momochi Haku, hunter nin for Zabuza's coup d'etat army, and only surviving member of the Isu clan. Those are huge accomplishments for someone so young, Hamaru told the girl. Haku looked at the man in surprise while thinking, he knows of my clan. But I thought, no, if he knew of Zabuza's marking then it is only reasonable that he knows of my clan. Sensing the girl's confusion, Hamaru said, we in Konoha make it our business to know what's happening in other countries, especially ones that love war. Haku just nodded and waited for her assignment. Hamaru looked over the report Kakashi had written and turned to Kimimaro discussing the options they had open. The seconds ticked by and Haku grew more and more nervous until Kaharu cleared her throat and said, child, it seems both your guardian and one of our own Jonin hold you in high respect. They both said you exhibit Jonin level skills, but you show disdain for killing. It's strange, but we can accommodate that by drafting you into the nin program. Looking up, Haku stared at the two in surprise. What they said was true, killing hadn't been her favorite pastime, but it was a necessity. Now she was given an opportunity to heal instead of harm, but would that make me useless? The girl wondered while saying, I would like that, but what of my, but she was cut off by Kaharu. Do not worry, child. Our nin are renowned to be excellent shinobi as well, so do not worry of being useless, the elder woman said as if she had read the girl's mind. Continuing, Kaharu said, besides, one of our legendary sanin was nin and her strength is feared throughout the whole shinobi world. Nodding, Haku's worries were settled and she looked to her brother. The two turned their attention to the boy and began their analysis. Kagaya Kimimaro, no, it's Momochi Kimimaro now, isn't it? Hamaru started expressing his interest in the change. From the notes Kakashi had Zabuza write about his team, the council advisors realized that Kimimaro had more disdain for his old clan name than the people who destroyed them. Nodding, Kimimaro silently agreed before letting the two elders continue. Like your sister here, you are the only surviving member of your clan, aren't you? The old man asked and again got another nod. Nodding back, he continued saying, well, we have done our research and decided to make you our personal pupil, while motioning for his partner to agree. Kaharu nodded in approval and the Hokage sat up in surprise, but before he could say anything Kaharu told him, calm down, Sasuke, we won't teach him the most destructive parts of our art, so don't worry, she said, trying to calm down her old teammate. Kimimaro looked at the three elders in front of him and with his normal monotone voice asked, what is this art that you are trying to teach me? All three of the elders stopped their debate and looked to the boy who hadn't said anything in the whole conversation. Sighing, Sasuke let his teammates answer the question. We ourselves use a distinct form of jutsu, in an attempt to distinguish ourselves from our teammate and Hokage, also known as the Professor, who has mastery of all leaf jutsu, Kaharu began before letting Hamaru pick up. We instead followed the route of seals, tutoring Sasuke's pupil Jiraiya in the art, who in turn tutored the fourth, the greatest seal master of his time. Looking at the boy to make sure he was following, Hamaru waited for the boy to comment and wasn't disappointed. So you want me to become a seal master? The two nodded and Kimimaro said in his normal monotone, but I am a taijutsu specialist, ninjutsu has never been my style. The two older shinobi sighed a bit before Hamaru said, I should have expected this, but in truth. Seals are ninjutsu but only to a certain level. They do consume chakra, but unlike ninjutsu, they can have a plethora of effects, such as, the man led off before laying his hand on the desk in front of him. Letting some chakra seep through his hands, he then made lightning-quick marks on the desk before it erupted into sawdust. Sarutobi let out a sigh and said, do you always have to do that demonstration? Hamaru just smiled and said, yes, because it leaves the most memorable effects. It was true, both of the Mist shinobi were shocked, but only Haku showed it. Kimimaro nodded his head before expressing his interest in the subject. Tell me more. Hamaru smirked and said, well, we have a believer now, but that is only one of the many things that can be done with seals. Another being this, and with a single motion, Hamaru rebuilt the mahogany desk as fast as he disintegrated it. Kimimaro nodded and without words urged them to continue. Kaharu took over for her partner and said, this is only the tip of the iceberg. True masters of the art can transmute objects to their desires or even complete much more destructive and complicated maneuvers without the aid of a seal. The elder told the boy, and by the look on his face his was in. Watching his teammates wrap up their conversation with their new pupil, Sasuke thought to himself, my teammates have found someone to pass their knowledge on to, but who will be my successor? The old scar from his former pupil lay heavy on his heart, and the upcoming Chunin exam was making him worry, especially with this new village of the sound. Dismissing the two shinobi, Sasuke gave Kimimaro the key to their new apartment and told him that Zabuza would meet them there. Seeing the two leave through the doors they came in, the Sarutobi smiled when he noticed that Naruto and the Hyuga heiress were there waiting for them. Well, at least I know my village will be alright, the old man told himself, sure that Naruto would be there for this village just as he was for these newcomers. That night, never again, Naruto told himself while walking Haku and Kimimaro home. Hinata had been dropped off at the Hyuga estate a few minutes ago after a long afternoon of showing the new shinobi around town. More like having an excuse to spend the day shopping, Naruto grumbled to himself, while holding Haku's bags. Originally the girl had offered to carry them, but after some convincing by Hinata, much to Naruto's dismay, she managed to get Naruto to carry them. Now after a solid 5-hour block of shopping, Naruto was finally on his way home. My feet ache, my head hurts, and if I ever have to model gear for them again I think I'll scream. 1. Naruto told himself while they continued to walk in silence. It had been like that ever since Hinata left. The girl had been the life of the party, and without her everyone seemed content on just staring, or in Kimimaro's case glaring, at each other awkwardly. She even managed to get Kimimaro off my back, Naruto added while recalling how the Hyuga heiress had drawn Kimimaro into a conversation, no matter how one-sided, and managed to get him to stop glaring at Naruto every time he tried to talk to Haku. Now the awkward silence was killing him, and Naruto didn't have any idea how to break it. Turning to the girl, Naruto said, well, how was the tour? Unsure of what to talk about. Turning to Kimimaro, Naruto felt relief pass through him when he noticed that Kimimaro was either too drawn into his own thought to care or too tired to object to him talking to his sister. Haku smiled shyly and told Naruto, it was interesting, but Hinata seems a bit. Haku started unsure of what she wanted to say would upset Naruto. But lucky for her the boy had a sense of humor. Off, yeah I know, but you should have seen her before I got through to her. She was a stuttering mess who was shyer than a newborn kitten, Naruto said before laughing at the thought. Haku giggled a little and heard Naruto say, just don't tell her I said that, because I don't need to give her a reason to practice her juken on me. Nodding. Haku giggled again, causing Naruto to chuckle as well. Kimimaro shot Naruto a look that wasn't quite a glare for a second before turning his eyes back to the front. What was that about? Naruto asked before turning his attention back to Haku. They chatted for a while, until they reached the address on the direction where it was leading them. Looking up from the paper, Naruto couldn't believe where they were or that he hadn't noticed the address before. Looking down to make sure it was right, Naruto said to himself, I'll get you back for this G.San, before guiding the two to their apartment. This is you guys, and this is me, Naruto told them before pointing to the apartment next to it. Kimimaro nodded and went inside, probably to catch some sleep, leaving Haku and Naruto outside. The awkward silence was back, but before Naruto could break it, Haku gave the boy a quick hug and muttered, thank you so much for giving us this second chance, before darting inside. Naruto just stood there for a second before telling himself, why is this so complicated? In the deserts of Wind Country. The dust was settling after a climatic finish to a cage-level battle. Standing above the Yondaime cage, Orochimaru took a second to really look at the man who was almost as twisted as he was. This man had taken preserved samples from the Sandaime, master of the Iron Sand, and grafted them into his own body in a surprisingly successful attempt to give him some leverage over his son. It worked, and one of the few considered equal to Konoha's Yondaime gained the ability to use the Iron Sand. However, that hadn't saved him. Abed Orochimaru looked down at the man's eyes that were quickly losing the light of life. Glee spread through him when he realized, Konoha's destruction is assured now. Then it dawned on him, I would have died if it weren't for Kabuto. The truth was the cage had Orochimaru pinned under his Iron Sand, and even now as the man's lingering chakra left for the spirit realm, Orochimaru could still feel the prickle of the tiny grains of sand tearing through his skin like a hot kunai. Turning to his silver-haired ward, Orochimaru saw the boy pick up his glasses that had been lost in battle and subdued the growing chuckling within him. Maybe it is his only link to his true self, or something he needs to hold on to, Orochimaru told himself while recalling Kabuto when he summoned up his old blood, and his abilities spiked. Almost frighteningly, Orochimaru commented when he saw the nin's abilities grew to a semi-cage level, tipping the battle in his favor. And to think I never suspected that this child would be able to reach this level, but then again his parents were both more than minor annoyances to me, the Snake Sanin added while calling his assistant over to him. Kabuto, why don't you use that special ability of yours? I believe that it will be very useful in the near future, Orochimaru told the silver-haired boy, who just went to the task with single-minded determination. Watching the once dead man slowly be brought back to life, Orochimaru chuckled to himself while thinking, Konoha will fall.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.